Hello, everyone, and thanks for giving us your time today for VR Download. I'm Ian Hamilton in New York, joined by David Heaney in London in the UploadVR studios as we talk about the next steps in personal computing. We're in Quest 3 headsets today with last generation meta avatars. We're using hand tracking with built-in microphones. We've got tablets in front of us that show us notes and comments so we can interact with our audience live. And thank you to our patrons for supporting the work we do on UploadVR.com. In case this is first time here, you can become a member at UploadVR.com to support our work directly. We thank our patrons by name here on this podcast, and that includes XR Developer News, Podum, Holonet, Justin Corcoran, Richard Meller, Parmesan Qubit, Steve Lucas, David Wyatt, DePonch, and Soul Presence. Sincerely thank you to all of you for your support. David, what do we have today?
Hello, everyone. I'm slightly sick today, so might have to take some breaks to drink water, but this should be fine. We have 4 sections today we're going to discuss. We'll start with our MetaQuest Horizon OS section. We will talk about the Quest browser getting instant WebXR hit testing. We will talk about Quest V81, Horizon OS V81, I should say, rolling out on the stable channel, so you don't need the public test channel anymore for V81. And that brings the new immersive home, gets rid of all the legacy homes, adds 2D window anchoring, QuickPlay, and brings some other things that we'll note, such as the ability to use Horizon Hyperscape Capture. Then we will discuss Quest 3's Windows 11 Remote Desktop official integration, getting aspect ratio settings and a Vision OS-like ultra-wide mode. And our final topic in the MetaQuest section will be Horizon Plus getting a new indie catalog, and the fact that Quest developers can apply for their games to be included in Horizon Plus now. It's not just an application system. So Meta is really trying to expand the scope of what Horizon Plus is and make it a more kind of essential thing for Quest headset buyers to be subscribed. We will then discuss Anduril's EagleEye military XR headset. We have talked about it on this show before. We've been pretty on top of the teasing announcements, but now the design, the real design, not just a mock-up, has been presented for both the transparent AR module and the pass-through VR MR module. So this is a very modular headset. They've also showed off some clips of the interface in action, and those clips have gone viral across social media, such as X, where people are really seeing that this is a real thing coming to life. This is kind of really shocked people to see that we are there. We're at this point where this is going to be a major part of the future of infantry. We will then discuss Samsung and Android XR. We will talk about Samsung teasing a date next week for a Galaxy event where they say to come and meet the first Android XR headset. It seems like that could be the launch date. It's the same date that some South Korean news outlets have rumored, and Samsung now has an official headset-related event. So I think we can put 2 and 2 together and say that that's highly likely to be the launch event for Samsung's headset, the first Android XR headset. The other Android XR news we're going to discuss is Lynx teasing their next headset. And if you remember, back when Google announced Android XR formally in December, almost a year ago now, they actually said that while Samsung's headset will be the first, Samsung has the kind of first dibs on Android XR, there will be others. And 2 of the companies mentioned, one was Xreal, which they've announced Project Aura. It's going to be like a birdbath style Android XR. But there was also Lynx. So Lynx has announced, or not announced, I should say, teased an image of their next headset. And again, if we put 2 and 2 together, it looks like it's very possible that this next Lynx headset will run Android XR. So there'll be multiple options, most likely still on the high end, though. We're not talking yet anything on the Quest 3 price scale. The rumors suggest that both of the headsets we're going to discuss are going to be on the higher end. Finally, we will discuss Apple Vision Pro and Vision OS. So firstly, we will discuss the news that dropped just after our show last week, which is that Apple Vision Pro is getting live Apple Immersive LA Lakers NBA games next year. And if you watch VR Download at all, you will know that one of the things we're constantly asking for is, when are we going to get live Apple Immersive video? Well, now we have the answer. There's a new variant of that Blackmagic camera we're always showing, a live variant specifically designed for live streaming this format. and it's coming to select LA Lakers games next year. A very early launch. We're not talking about some widespread, the entire NBA or anything like that, but that's much better than it not existing. That's the very start. So our next Apple topic in our final section will be the Logitech Muse Spatial Stylus. Pre-orders have opened for it. It's basically the Apple Pencil VR that people have been wanting, right? The Apple Spatial Pencil. It's real, but it's coming from Logitech, not Apple. And yeah, we obviously plan to get one and tell you how that is. And there are some apps that have announced that they're going to support that. Very, very similar hardware to the MX Ink that already exists for Quest headsets. It looks like to be a variant. Obviously, Apple and Logitech aren't really saying that in any of their announcements, but you can very easily see it by just looking at images of them. It's the same shape, just with slightly different button designs. Then we'll talk about the announcement that PlayStation VR 2 Sense controllers will finally be sold separately from the headset, right? Sony doesn't sell the controller separately from the headset. So say you broke one of your controllers, you would have to hope that Sony replaces it under warranty. If you're out of warranty, you might be screwed. But now they're going to be sold separately from Apple, not from Sony, on the Apple online store in the US for $250. That includes the charging stand, Sony's official charging stand, but that is only $150 less than getting the entire headset and controllers. So it's not exactly a value deal there. They're obviously making a decent margin on that, but it is going to be possible for Vision Pro owners to pick up those PlayStation VR 2 controllers, which are supported in Vision OS. Finally, our final topic will, of course, be Apple officially announcing and opening pre-orders for the M5 Vision Pro, and it's included dual knit band. So Apple Vision Pro is getting a spec bump and a comfortable band. I noticed that even Apple's website doesn't say it's a more comfortable band. They call it a comfortable band, which is almost an admittance there about the old situation, but I think we can get into that at the end.
Yeah, very robust show for our audience today. I see a bunch of people tuned in, a lot of regular viewers. Siegfried out there saying all they care about is Steam Frame. And then who was it? Someone asking whether the M5 was real, and it was real. That is a big moment for Apple. We'll get into it at the end of the show. Let's move through these topics as quickly as we can. I will warn you, I may be distracted.
You just muted yourself? You said distract and then muted yourself?
Yeah. I may be a little distracted today. I actually put my finger through the button right there. My finger's hovering over the mute button. I may be a little distracted today as I pop in and out, and keep an eye on the comments as I'm tending to the real world around me a little bit during this episode. But it is a big show and a big set of announcements and a big time of the year. Let's just move right through it here, I guess. Hello to all of our regular viewers. As always, love hearing everyone where you're watching from. If you're listening in a different language somehow through a universal translator, we'd love to hear about that as well. I think those people are in our audience too. Yeah, let's move to this because I think we're going to build to that last talking point pretty big.
Sure. So we're starting with a smaller story as the audience builds up. So the web browser on Horizon OS on Quest headsets now uses its depth sensing capability, the headset's depth sensing capability for WebXR hit testing. So hit testing in WebXR is the ability to kind of send out a raycast into the real world pass-through view and see where it collides. And it's quite obvious by looking at this image what that's for. It's for instantly being able to place virtual objects in the real world. And if you're building a WebXR app that's using mixed reality, that's something you might want to do. So previously, before this update, it would require a scene mesh scan. You would have to have had the room you're in scanned for the Quest 3 mixed reality setup. And as we always talk about on this show, the big problems, plural, with the scene mesh scan is firstly, you have to have done it. If you're in a room that you haven't done that yet, that's 30 seconds plus of extra friction just to use one WebXR app. You might just say, nah, I can't be bothered with a scene mesh. I'll just not try this app. The other problem is that even if you have done it, it's only a reflection of that moment in time. If anyone was in the room while the scene mesh was being scanned, their body will be there as the mesh. If you moved furniture, that furniture won't be reflected in the mesh. So just like in Unity and for native apps, Meta rolled out a few months ago the ability to easily do instant placement, leveraging the depth API. This is now how the WebXR works. So there's no developer effort needed here. If you're just using the WebXR hit testing API, which is part of the WebXR standard, automatically it will now start to use the depth sensing capability. And what do I mean by the depth sensing capability in the depth API? Well, that's something that's been available since shortly after Quest 3 launched. It gives you a coarse per frame depth frame as a developer, and then it works by comparing the stereo disparity from the two front grayscale cameras. So it's computer vision depth sensing. It's how hand occlusion works on Quest. Any app you use, such as the new Star Wars mixed reality experience, where you can put your hand in front of things, it's just this depth API system. It's also what LaserTag used to deliver real-time scene scanning. They, as we discussed at the time, they just use this coarse per frame depth frame system to then just to kind of map that in to world space. Very clever usage, but here is just a very basic usage of find where the raycast intercepts, and you can place objects instantly. So just wanted to start that small story, but it's a very nice quality of life improvement if you are a WebXR mixed reality developer.
Yeah, I'm seeing Memphis, Tennessee out there. Hello, everyone. Let's see if there's any other locations. I saw someone was listening to us on a drive, and someone is out there in Las Vegas, and it's sunny but cool in the 60s out there. And love it when we have different seasons in different parts of the world when people are watching us. So if there's anyone in a different part of the world watching us with different weather, we love seeing that. We've got a whole set of meta news here at the top. We should probably just run through them pretty quickly here before we get to the Anduril news and then all the platform building that's happening near the end of this show. So let's just, I don't see any comments on this yet. There's a lot of people asking questions for the later shows, or for the later topics, I mean.
Yeah, for sure. Let's go into our next topic then, which is that Horizon OS version 81 is now rolling out to all Quest headsets. So it's on the stable channel. You don't need to be enrolled in the public test channel anymore to get V81. And the flagship feature, as we've been reporting for a long time, is the new Immersive Home. It's the new VR home environment for Quest headsets that replaces all of the legacy environments. As Meta revealed at Connect 2025, it is powered by the new Horizon engine that powers the latest worlds in Horizon Worlds, which are built with Horizon Studio. It is higher visual fidelity than the previous homes, but it is kind of one central mesh, and then you choose the backgrounds is what you customize. There are 4 backgrounds: Horizon Central, which has you kind of peer out over the new Horizon Central of Horizon Worlds, or at least kind of a mock-up version of it. Midnight, which is kind of like a really dark one that has the northern lights above you, great for if you're using your headset at nighttime. A Valley, which is the one I pick, which is just, you know, a nature, beautiful valley scene in the background. And Oceanarium, which is a extended version of the old Oceanarian home that has you underwater in a kind of vibrant underwater environment with turtles swimming over you and things like that. So as well as just looking better, the new Horizon Home lets you free locomote around it using kind of stick push locomotion. So you push the thumbstick and move around just like you might in a VR game. It also, as well as having a Horizon Central portal, just like the old homes, has this new Instagram widget that lets you, if you log in, see Instagram stories of your friends and followed pages in 3D. It's kind of like a background. And yeah, this seems to just be a foundation for the future. Meta has talked to Connect about how it will soon talk about its social story for this new immersive home. They talked about the idea of being able to watch movies and play games with friends in this new immersive home. That's not there right now, but it does sound like this is just kind of, they've introduced this new platform. It's on a new engine. And so they're kind of building out to that. In addition to that, the other flagship feature I would say of V81 is 2D window anchoring. This used to be called pinning in some of the very, very early versions, but it's now being rolled out as anchoring. So in either pass-through, your real-world environment, or in immersive home, you have this new option underneath Windows called Anchor, and that is a persistent anchor. So if in pass-through, if you place a window at a specific part of your home and anchor it, even when you come back from a VR game, or even if you reboot your headset, even if your headset runs out of battery and you charge it back up again, when you come in, that same window will be in that place. So, you could have like a specific place where you put up your own widget you could essentially make, right? By having like a clock or calendar in a browser window. I could pin UploadVR to a certain part of my home. It is not geometry aware yet, though. You cannot pin windows onto your wall. You can, however, do that in Immersive Home. So to be clear, the anchoring system of pass-through and home are using the same button, the same UX, but they're completely separate. So if you switch from pass-through to Immersive Home, your pass-through pinned windows will disappear because they're pinned in a location in your home. If you come into Immersive Home, you can pin windows on the walls or just in free space. If you use the thumbstick to push forward, it will make the window move further from you. And once it hits a virtual wall here, it will stop. So in my virtual home, for example, I have the UploadVR homepage loaded, of course, so that even when I'm in VR, I can check, if Henry's put up some stories or Ian's put up some interesting stories. So that's an interesting feature, persistent anchoring. The next notable V81 feature is QuickPlay. So this is something that is available on other platforms like PlayStation and Epic Games. Android has it, and it's a download as you play system. So you only need to download the necessary files from the Horizon store to start playing the game, and the rest install in the background. Again, if you have something like a PlayStation or another gaming platform that has this, you'll be familiar where you see ready to play instead of fully downloaded. You start playing the game, and then other things download in the background. Interestingly, while all of those other systems on those other stores require developer implementation, Meta says that it's automatic. Its system figures out by crowdsourcing data telemetry on which files people need at certain parts of the game, what you need and don't need at the start. So it only activates after enough people have played a game, and then for the future people downloading that game, they're able to do this quick play thing. So lower friction means that you've just bought a big new blockbuster VR game. It takes less time from clicking and download until you're actually in that game. The other feature we want to note is link PC VR games in your library. We covered this last week. I'm just pointing it out. If you needed V81 for it, it's now there and stable. Your link PC VR games show up here in your library as installed apps. You click them and you're in them. There's no old Rift dash. There's no friction. You're straight in. There's just nothing. You click it and the game loads from your perspective. Obviously, in the background, your PC is doing things, but from your perspective, you're just launching into the game. Other changes include that Navigator is now seemingly, for some people, PTC only. They seem to have rolled back Navigator from a wider launch at Connect. They obviously teased an evolved version of Navigator that looks like they're going to wait for it to be ready before they make this the default way to use Quest. The Windows 11 remote desktop, we'll talk about soon, is no longer experimental. They say there's going to be a new user switcher UI, but I don't seem to have that yet. So it's like a sub rollout. And as I noted at the start, if you want to use Horizon Hyperscape Capture that we talked about, the app that lets you scan in real world locations with your Quest 3, you need V81. So if you're on the stable channel, soon you should have the V81 needed for that.
Yeah, we've got, two more Meta news stories to talk about here. Someone saying that pinning isn't available for them yet. There's obviously a long rollout for various features of every kind in the Meta ecosystem as they test the reliability. So if it's not there yet, it might be there soon, as is the case with most Meta features.
Yeah, that's very frustrating, isn't it? Like we find it so hard to report on this because you download an update for your PlayStation 5. There's a changelog, and that changelog is what you see. Same thing for your iPhone, right? You download iOS, whatever, and it's there. With Meta, you download this, and everything I just mentioned, they could roll it out to 40% of people, 80% of people, 90%. And to be clear, we're not just talking about the update itself. It's every feature sometimes gets separately rolled out. Now, my understanding, though, is that anchoring should be available to everyone, though. So make sure, again, you're looking for an option called Anchor, not just pin, and you need to be in the home space, either pass-through home or immersive home, not in a VR game. But sorry, and continue.
Oh no, I was just going to say, it's they're always rearranging the decks. I saw James, I think, was mentioning Oculus Homes out there, which we had the headline that Meta evicted, or Facebook evicted people from their Meta homes, or their Oculus homes, sorry. And now they're removing them into these new immersive homes, which is just a new name, new architecture for things they've already done 3 or 4 times already. So we'll have to see how long this one lasts and if it has, all of Meta rolled into it, or if the wrong pieces, aren't there yet and they have to re-architect it again.
I'm very curious to see what the social story here is that they're going to be talking about soon. So I do think this one seems like it will last because, again, it's built on their Horizon engine that is powering Horizon Worlds. Technically, I think this sort of is just a Horizon World, sort of. It's not as simple as that, but it's much more integrated into Horizon Worlds than before. And as we talked about before, actually, you use the same movement settings between Horizon Worlds and Horizon Home now. So, if you change in your home, if you change your stick movement from smooth turning to snap turning, or you turn the vignette off, that will apply in Horizon Worlds. There's a comment here I want to reply from Arlen, who says, last night I was pulling teeth trying to explain Meta Horizon OS menus to my brother in Minnesota. If I just let him see what I'm doing, it would make Meta Home so useful. So you actually can do that in WhatsApp and Messenger. If you both have WhatsApp or Messenger either installed on your headset, just start a call, hit video, and choose share view, and they actually will be able to see in the Messenger or WhatsApp window what you're seeing. I wonder, are they going to bring that to the built-in chats? Perhaps they have, but I didn't see it the last time I tested a few weeks ago.
Yeah, that's a very big area for the future. The same is true, of everything, right? I actually find it enormously frustrating that the Western technology companies that pretend to be, for free speech and American ideals make it literally difficult to share your view from one headset to another. So as David pointed out, you can do that today within the Meta ecosystem pretty effectively using one of their calling platforms, not all of their calling platforms. But of course, you've got Google on its way as well. You've got Apple with FaceTime. And, you can, in many instances, or some instances, I saw this with Spaces years ago that became the foundation of FaceTime in Vision OS, but you send your avatar, this avatar, one that looks very, very much like this, to the camera inside of a calling platform, and you've got a representation that looks, has all your hand movements, moves around like you actually do in the real world, but doesn't actually send over your real texture, your real environment in any way. Having that be able to connect any headset to any headset is a moment that's still in our future, and it's a pain that the platforms aren't making it easier to do right now.
Yep. I see a lot of people in our comments pointing out their frustration at the sort of sub rollout thing. People are saying, their Quest has never been up to date with the version. The changelog has never been up to date with the version that their Quest headset updates to. James O'Loughlin is saying that's because Meta beta tests on paying customers. Yeah, look, I think this comes from their culture of Facebook and Instagram, where everything is an A/B test. Very rarely would the same, if you're sitting beside someone that's using Facebook and you're using Facebook, or Instagram and Instagram, very rarely, even though you're using the same phone, the same app version, would you actually see the same interface. There's always little tweaks they're testing. And look, at some level, it makes some sort of sense, right? If there's something very wrong with a subset of features, then you can theoretically avoid messing up everyone's experience. In practice, I think it works a lot better for a social media app than it does for an operating system where you need consistency. And it's not like it's not the buggiest anyway, right? Horizon OS, despite this rollout system, is buggier than Vision OS. And I would wager that it'll be buggier than Android XR, but that's massively speculative on my part, and that's something we'll obviously be testing ourselves.
Yeah, I'm going to push back on that a little bit, I guess, and just argue. Go back to 2019, and Meta did an A/B test between the Quest and the Rift S. Both were priced at $400. Both were released into the market. And then within, I don't know, 2 years, basically the Oculus brand was turned into Oculus Link. It was no longer a company. It was no longer a hardware brand associated with the Rift headset, even though it was always arguably a software brand. But it was they made a choice to make PC software. And every A/B test since then has been inside this universe that a lot of people just don't want to spend time in, and that's Horizon.
Sure. I think the one difference there, while that is sort of an A/B test, is that that one lets you choose, right? So you as a buyer could choose between Rift S and Quest. That was kind of more of a market test, whereas in the A/B test of software here, you don't get to choose whether you get these features. That would be great for enthusiasts. I think a lot of enthusiasts who do enjoy using their Quest and Horizon OS would love an ability to say, just let me force on the latest updates, you know? And theoretically, joining the PTC should be that, but it's not really, right? Because even within that, they do these A/B tests. I would love a super advanced setting. Maybe you need to enable developer mode. Just let people who are enthusiasts, who live and breathe these headsets, use the newest features if they want. I think that would be greatly appreciated by people.
My argument. So first, I want to say thank you to the donation out there saying they love this show from DCM. Thank you for tuning in, encouraging you all to support us in the work we do. We are an extremely small team trying to cover the next steps in personal computing. And it's funny, like we have naysayers in our audience and people that don't necessarily believe as wholeheartedly as we do that the next generation of personal computing is founded in the headsets we're wearing right now, right? Like these are the precursors to things everyone will wear in the future. And we really believe that with our whole heart here. And so seeing support from others who kind of share that view. And honestly, if that view is wrong, we'll report it as well. It's just, I think the thing is, we're going to keep reporting it from VR headsets that get better and better with each passing year. And what other than us being right about the future foundations of personal computing can we be if that's the case? So just we thank you to all of our regular viewers, the people who believe in the future and want to see it go in a good direction. We've got some heavy subjects later in the show. We'll be talking about the Anduril military XR headset, and that is extremely interesting, and I'm excited to talk about that one here soon. David, I think I'm going to leave you here to talk about the next two meta subjects in like one grouping here before I interrupt you again. If there's any questions about meta, now is the section of the show, I think, to get it out to us and ask any meta related questions as we move on to the rest of the show. So I'm going to mute myself here and I'll leave you to these next two subjects mostly on your own.
Sure. We can hop back in once you're ready again. So Quest 3's Windows 11 remote desktop integration, the official integration that was built between Meta and Microsoft, now has aspect ratio settings and an ultra-wide mode. So if you're not familiar with what this is, it was rolled out as an experimental feature at the end of last year. Now with Horizon OS V81, as I just mentioned, it is now actually a stable feature. It is kind of just the default way you can connect to a Windows 11 PC. And it is clearly very heavily inspired by Apple's Mac Virtual Display on Vision OS, in that once you set it up, which is done in a way where you use your Quest 3 to scan a QR code that you bring up on your Windows 11 PC through Microsoft software. Once it's set up, you just look at the keyboard of that PC and you'll see a little floating button on top that says connect. And this is while you're inside your Horizon home environment, either virtual or pass-through. You pinch that button and pretty much instantly you connect to your PC screen and you connect to your PC and your PC screen turns off, just like Mac Virtual Display, as you can see in this mock-up image, and gets replaced by a larger virtual screen. And a feature that's been there since launch is that you can then spawn virtual extra side monitors. And all of these monitors, these virtual monitors, are Horizon OS multitasking windows. So you can just sit in pass-through home and use them in your physical environment, or you can use them in your immersive home if you want. But you can also use them in any VR app. I could have them open right now. You could go into VR chat and find your favorite cool environment and be there. If there's a place in a VR game that you love to just be in and you think, wow, this is an amazing scene. And a game obviously that doesn't have enemies constantly flying at you, a game where you can just chill for a second. You can make that your workspace, right? You can be in that game in that specific area and just press the meta menu button and connect to your PC and have these kind of virtual monitors. So that's cool. There are obviously many other applications that let you do similar things on Quest, but they are full space immersive apps where you can't do the multitasking that I just described. They have their own cool environments, such as, Virtual Desktop from Geek Odin, and I love Virtual Desktop. But the ability to kind of use these in any app does give it its own edge, as well as the fact that you don't need any kind of third-party software on your PC. This is a kind of built-in extension of Windows 11 from Microsoft officially. It also, has very good latency and quality. I'm impressed with this on a technical level. But the news here, this what I just described so far has been available for almost a year now. The news this week is that they have added aspect ratio settings for these monitors, as well as an ultra-wide mode. So first, the aspect ratio settings. The default window that pops up when you connect to your PC is a regular 16:9 aspect ratio widescreen monitor. What the vast majority of you, I expect, have is your physical monitor. Now, with this new update, you can set any of these three monitors to either 3:4 portrait. As you can see on screen, that's what this was. I just thought it'd be funny to bring up the Wikipedia article for display aspect ratio as a demo here. And you can also choose 21:9 ultra wide. And there's a confusion here in that their ultra wide mode that I'm about to describe is not 21:9 ultra wide window aspect ratio settings. So there's a little bit of confusion here. Meta solves, quote unquote, this solution by calling default 16:9 compact, this portrait, and then 21:9 wide. So these are the three aspect ratios that you can set any of your up to three monitors to, and you can choose any configuration of that, right? So this example I've given here, I have a regular compact 16:9 virtual monitor, as well as a portrait one. And again, this is all built into Windows 11. It works really well. I haven't seen any glitches with it. It just works, okay? But additionally, they have rolled out an ultra-wide mode. An ultra-wide mode only supports one monitor. And if you go into it, it'll warn you that if you have multiple monitors open, it'll say, look, this is only supported in one monitor. And the ultra-wide mode is like what Vision OS added in Vision OS 2.2 for Mac Virtual Display. It is this massive, engulfing, giant, giga-wide, really, I should call it. It's wider than an ultra-wide monitor, a virtual monitor. And for this screenshot I took, to be clear, I had to physically walk back a lot to get it in shot. You're much closer. You would be standing much closer and kind of panning your head around. So, as I keep repeatedly saying, it's clearly inspired by what Apple rolled out late last year, the Vision OS 2.2 ultra-wide mode for Mac Virtual Display. It's just that Meta and Microsoft now let you choose which you prefer, right? You can have your triple regular monitors. You can have your double monitors with different aspect ratios. You can have triple monitors with different aspect ratios. Or if you want, you can go with the giant ultra-wide. You get the choice with this system. We've heard from people who love to use Mac Virtual Display on their Vision Pro that they love this ultra-wide mode for things like video editing and audio editing, right? If you're editing a video, instead of having to constantly scroll along the timeline, you can get, for a lot of projects, the entire damn timeline open at once and have it there and get this sense of where everything is in a way that you really just are not going to get with any traditional monitor. And yeah, this is a focus mode window. This kind of goes into Horizon OS's focus mode, which means you can choose between it being curved and flat, and you can also dim your background. So that can be pass-through or the virtual environment you're in. So you can focus by you can be in your physical room and still be able to see around you, but have it dimmed out as like a focus mode, is what it's literally called. So yeah. Yeah, so this is interesting. I'll just have a look at some of the comments here. James O'Loughlin saying, glad this feature exists and Meta and Microsoft partnered to make this work. Difference with Vision Pro is pixel density and glyph rendering features for text. Yeah, so on Quest 3, this is a 2K per eye headset. You're not going to get the same number of pixels in your vision as with a Vision Pro. That is something that absolutely is notable. I would say that the bigger thing that they're missing here, and I was just about to mention it compared to Apple's feature, is for me the single most important feature of Mac Virtual Display, the ad hoc connectivity. So when you use Mac Virtual Display, right, when you simply put on your Vision Pro and look at your MacBook and you see that little button pop up and you press that little virtual button, it automatically, instantly creates a dedicated point-to-point Wi-Fi connection between the Mac and the headset. No user input required. You wouldn't even realize it's being done if you didn't know about it. And why does this matter, right? Because maybe you have a great Wi-Fi network. You're only doing virtual screens here. This is fine. You can do this in your home Wi-Fi. It matters as soon as you leave your home, because the difference here is that I can go onto a plane or train and look at my MacBook and go into Mac Virtual Display without any local network existing, right? And even if you have a local network on a lot of these kind of situations like an aircraft or you're in a cafe, often they don't allow local devices to see each other and send traffic to each other for obvious security reasons and just the way the network's architectured. So Mac Virtual Display, being able to do this point-to-point Wi-Fi is sublime. It works so well. It also means that if you are on a local network that could do this and there's traffic on the network, there's no congestion. It never bothers you. So that is what I really want to see from Meta and Microsoft. If anyone from Meta and Microsoft who has anything to do with this feature is watching, that's what you need to do next. You now have this partnership, right? You have the company that makes the operating system, Windows 11, and you have the company that makes the headset. Surely you can figure out a way for these devices to create a point-to-point connection automatically between each other, and then we can use them on a plane or a train, which is where this kind of portable monitor setup really matters, because maybe you do have a really cool triple monitor setup at home already, or an ultrawide, and you prefer it. You don't have to put something on your head, but that's not what you should really be comparing this to. It's the setup that you would have while you're on a 10-hour flight for work, where you're craning over your little 13-inch laptop and your neck starts to hurt because you're leaning down like this. Instead, you can lean back, have your laptop here, and have a giant monitor setup of whatever size and configuration you want.
I'm doing a real-time test of the operating system here in real time. I've got remote desktop streaming from, or Meta's version of remote desktop streaming from a Mac, and then I'm using the UVC camera to provide me a real-time view of my environment directly into the headset here. And I'm here about, I don't know, 10 minutes or 15 minutes into using that, and Meta's remote desktop streaming feature has activated a feature that says move your mouse to continue streaming. And I was using the webcam on the front face of the MacBook Air at this point to keep an eye on my environment using the streaming feature of the Mac. And now, to conserve bandwidth, or under the assumption that I'm not actually using the device, it's stopped that streaming solution for me in this headset at this time, whereas the UVC camera directly into my headset is still streaming in this mission critical scenario, that letting me see my environment while I'm here in the studio with you. Those are the types of things that you're describing, a point-to-point wireless connection that should not or cannot fail, or it should fail far less frequently than any other solution. And I just have to come back at you with the wired solution being reliable in 100% of scenarios, whereas wireless is only ever going to be reliable in some subset of 100% of scenarios.
You're right to say that the other way you could do this on Quest 3 is you could use HDMI link, right? You could take a physical display cable from your laptop to your Quest 3, 100%. For me, and yet another cable on something like an airplane where I've already set up, chargers and cables, I'm already plugged into the AC socket. The last thing I want is another cable. I want to have as few wires as possible, but I think that is obviously our normal contention. Our disagreement here on VR download. You're Mr. Wired and I'm Mr. Wireless. And yeah, I think the future obviously will have place for both. James O'Loughlin is asking, have I ever tested Mac Virtual Display without using the airplane Wi-Fi on an airplane? I've never done this on a plane yet. Yes, I have used it probably between maybe 10 times now. I've used it. On most of these flights I take when I'm going across the Atlantic, I am in Vision Pro for about 2/3 or more of the time. I have Mac Virtual Display directly in front of me, and I have a movie behind me. So I have the movie in the background, just as background noise mostly, and then I have the Mac Virtual Display for work in front of me. It works flawlessly. I have never had a single issue with it ever.
Yeah, and I've walked out onto the show floor at AWE and encountered the most wireless interference you'll ever encounter in your lifetime, right? Radiation just coming at you from every direction. I'm curious, did our comments change whether display names or usernames are shown? So like we've got Guy Godin, I think, in the audience, but what his display name is shown as is changed for us. So I wanted to make sure that that's actually him before we start calling out his comments. Since
Yeah,
it
it looks to be him. I think some of the commenters are pointing out YouTube seems to have changed that. So we have Guy Godin, the developer of Virtual Desktop, the app that I mentioned previously of really enjoying on Quest, who is pointing out, obviously I have to point out that Guy Godin is a competitor to these features, so there's going to be a little bit of bias there. But Guy Godin is pointing out that Mac Virtual Display doesn't work if your Mac is only wired with Ethernet, which Guy Godin describes as really stupid. So personally, I only use a MacBook. I don't have a Mac desktop, so I've never run into that. And I only use it for portability anyway. And Guy Godin also contends you still have interference with other 5 gigahertz networks, so it's not really better in terms of quality of signal. So yeah, that's true. If your issue is congestion of the signal in the area, then this is not going to help. But if your issue is with traffic on the network in general, like just going through the actual router itself, of course it helps. The other thing, as we'll get to at the end of the show, Apple's Vision Pro headsets don't support 6 gigahertz, but if they did, that would be hugely advantageous for something like Mac Virtual Display.
So VR Hermit out there just gave us a $41.56 donation, and they're calling it my 1% UploadVR tax for what I spent on the M5 Vision Pro yesterday. 1% tax there being an extraordinary amount of money. So I appreciate that donation, VR Hermit. VR Hermit is I think that's the creator of Project Graveyard over there, Apple Vision Pro. It's a hilarious little project, but also an amazing study in what's possible on the platform. And gosh, I'm ready to do battles with you, David, on the architecture of this studio as it should be, right, in an operating system. Like, you've had to build this studio within so many constraints of the operating system around you that most people don't ever even notice, right, in using a system. If I sit down in this chair 6 inches different than a normal chair, David will notify me with his software to basically sit up straight, a little bit straighter, in order to have it center me perfectly for these cameras over there. So he's done amazing work to get this whole thing to function within the constraints that Meta has built around him. And it's phenomenal work. But he still had to do it within their constraints. And I'm going like, David, I need to go attend to something over here. I need to stand up and walk out of the room. And he has to make choices about whether you drop my call, whether you continue my call onto the audience, right? And it's all certain concessions he's had to make as a developer to make this whole thing work the way it does. But like, there's so much more we could do if an operating system was built for our needs in mind and the needs of like broadcasting for all of you. It should be effortless for me to take photos and videos that are inside my headset right now and throw them up onto this TV. And like, someone out there has built that app, probably, right? But they haven't built all the other things you've done in here, right? So like, it's this weird combination of needs that we need as people popping in and out of virtual reality while still wanting to be live with you and private personally. We're gonna discuss a lot of those things. And so I'm so appreciative. VR Hermit has done some amazing work with Vision OS. And I wanted to at least speak to the idea that we've got such varied developers in our audience, people that have only ever worked with Quest and Horizon OS like you have here. And then people have spent hundreds of hours, and I know you've put that time in on other platforms too. But it's just, we have to speak to all of those audiences at once when we do these shows.
Yep, certainly a very complicated space, and we have the utmost respect for the insane effort that VR developers have to put in. Absolutely. I think from obviously us building this studio, and Ian's done some side projects and other things like that, we get a deep appreciation for the complexity that goes on in these apps the developers are doing, and we love to track the kind of developer ecosystem here just as much as the hardware technology as well. I see Andrew Tech saying that they fly wearing a Quest 3 and they find it way better than watching a little screen. And I wonder, Andrew Tech, what is it you use on your Quest 3 on the aircraft? I have taken a Quest 3 before to test the travel mode. I played Cubism on a shorter flight. This was it was a inside Europe flight, 2 hours. I just played a little bit of Cubism to try the travel mode. It was a fun way to spend time.
I'm going to get fired up when we talk about the Anduril headset here. So why don't we get through that last meta subject here, and then we can start talking about the Anduril helmet.
Yeah. So yeah, sure. Let's get straight onto that. Next topic of the meta section. Our final topic of the meta section is about Horizon Plus, Meta's $8 a month VR game subscription service. So until now, there have been 2 components to the Horizon Plus subscription service. There are the 2 monthly games that you can redeem. So each month there are these 2 games selected by Meta. You get to redeem them into your Horizon Plus library, and then you can play them for as long as you say subscribed to Horizon Plus. If you unsubscribe, you don't get to play them until you resubscribe, right? The other component is the games catalog, which is more like, the Xbox Game Pass system, where you have this rotating catalog of meta selected games that you can play while you stay subscribed. And these are generally kind of flagship games and blockbuster games, bigger games, mostly from development studios. But Meta seems to now be expanding Horizon Plus. They are beta testing, again, back to our earlier discussion, with a subset of users, a indie catalog that has smaller titles from smaller developers. And they have now opened applications for any developer to join Horizon Plus as well. So previously you had to be invited. Now they are inviting people to, that's very poor wording, sorry. Previously you had to be invited. Now they are letting people apply to join. So let me just bring up the requirements for these 2 different catalogs within Horizon Plus as a game developer. So you have the games catalog up here, and then the indie catalog down here. So on both, you have to be a paid app on the Horizon Store. That's kind of obvious. For the games catalog, you need to have been on there for 12 months at least. For the indie catalog, 6 months. For the games catalog, you need for both of them, you need a 4-star rating or higher. For the games catalog, you need 50 reviews. For the indie catalog, you need 10 reviews. And you can see there are also more specific revenue requirements. For the games catalog, you have to be successful enough to average $25,000 of monthly revenue over the past 3 months. And then for the indie catalog, that requirement is somewhere between $50 and $3,500. Now, as people pointed out, this creates there's a strange middle ground here where you wouldn't be eligible for either. If you make over $3,500 a month from your game, but not $25,000, you wouldn't be eligible for either. I don't know what the thinking is there. I guess you could possibly be too big for the indie catalog, but not big enough for the games catalog. Meta says that games that have significant moderation challenges or community standards issues, crashes, bugs, or poor object interactions, or unnecessary tutorials or unskippable storylines will not be accepted to either category. So it seems that they are looking for games that are kind of streamlined, quick to get into, fun for new Quest buyers. They don't want stuff that's kind of frictionful and rough here. As to whether this is a good opportunity for developers, that is going to depend on what the revenue sharing agreement looks like behind the scenes. We don't know what that is. Meta suggests that developers can make more than they would make on the store from this system. But if you are a developer who is part of Horizon Plus, or you become part of Horizon Plus, please reach out to us at tips@uploadvr.com or on our contact form, or email either of us personally and let us know. We would love to know, does this turn out a good deal for you? Do you recommend this to other developers? That's something that we think would be very valuable knowledge to have out there in the public domain for developers.
Just running a scenario that, bio a hypothetical here that maybe the Quest is dead. That they release a new headset that is so architecturally different from the Quest that they just call it something new. This is the Meta 1. Now, give me a second before let's say they call it the Meta 1 or something. It still plays Quest games, you can optionally go get controllers for this Meta 1 and play all of the Quest games in this catalog with the subscription costing you however much a month it costs. That would seem to work as an idea for Meta before you tell me why I'm wrong. All right, like it just hypothetically in a bubble, that seems like a service that would be useful to a lot of people getting into VR over the next few years.
I'm confused at what you're saying. I'm totally on board with the idea that Meta could be launching a headset that doesn't come with controllers by default and you buy them separately, right? We're about to discuss later how that's what Apple is doing. And that seems like a strategy other companies might take. But what is like?
You put all of the games that require controllers in one big bucket, one big subscription bucket. You know, like you get your payout like a royalty fee from this program as a developer,
Sure,
rather than upfront purchases. And then Meta has a way of packaging together all of the controller games that you go and get controllers with a 6-month subscription to this.
I think it's an interesting idea that you would have Horizon Plus as a benefit for buying controllers. That would make total sense to me that you see a Quest arrive in future that does that. I just don't understand where, like, are developers going to be forced onto this? Because this is right now they're saying you can join if you want. Are you suggesting you think they're going to say there is no store, you can't have your game for $20 anymore? It has to be part of the subscription. I'm curious what you're trying to say.
That's a wonderful question. So you've immediately gone to the end game of like my suggestion. But if you imagine that the store model is wrong, that it was the wrong idea from the outset for selling virtual places, then the right model is to have a doorway or a portal inside of Horizon Worlds that you put money into the portal, and then the portal turns from a black window into a window into the actual, you can walk through that portal now that you fed money into the portal machine. And that's the model that I imagine Meta arriving at over the long term. And that works great for hand tracking, where like I'm going to go places where I can do hand tracking only, I guess. But the deeper layer of VR that we all love right now is all attached to controllers and the things we can do with controllers, these tools in our hands that are precision and let us interact. And Meta has created this problem for themselves in not embracing eye tracking and hand tracking as the native interface. At some point, they have to ship a headset without those controllers in the box to lower the price of barrier to entry. And what are the games you go and get? You go and get hand tracking only games that you just pinch and look at, just like you do on Vision Pro and presumably will do on other systems, right? So like, they don't force you into this program, but what if it's the only way to make money with, supporting controllers on the Quest ecosystem?
Yeah, I certainly think they're going to push it more for sure. You can see that always there. When you open the Horizon store, often you will get the opportunity to buy this. I don't think it's unique. We often see, of course, Microsoft pushing Xbox Game Pass very hard. On Apple Vision Pro, a lot of those great games we talk about, for example, Game Room from Resolution Games and Gears and Goo, they're all part of Apple Arcade. They're not apps you can go and buy from the App Store. If you want to play the best games on Vision Pro, not even talking about controllers here, just gaze and pinch, they're behind the Apple Arcade subscription. So I see very much so the industry is moving in that direction. Meta would far rather have recurring revenue, the big thing these days for all businesses, monthly recurring revenue. They'd rather have that $8 a month from you than have you go and buy games sporadically, of course. And I think this is definitely the first step to bring in more games. It's saying not only are you going to have the blockbusters, we're going to have the indies, but look, whether developers embrace this is going to depend. How does the revenue sharing work? Do they make more? And that's why I think, we repeat that call for anyone who is part of this. Please let us know. We can obviously, keep you anonymous in our reporting. And I think you would want other developers to know that information. So reach out to me or Ian or Henry Stockdale, and we'd love to cover that story.
Yep. Just, I guess, be clear, to give you an example. So someone owned Kazi, I guess I lost him. Take Dimensional Double Shift as the example, right? That is a free-to-play upfront game, and then they're selling the worlds inside the game one at a time. who want to go unlock their new cool interactions, their new environment that's poking fun at the real world, you can go and pay that. But what I'm saying is they've priced it free to enter, right? You go enter. It's a hand tracking only experience built from the ground up for this interaction here that I'm using right here. And then you go play a game using room codes to enter with friends. That whole entry route that I just described is alien to 10 years of virtual reality content, right? There is no virtual reality content from 2016 or even 2014 to 2020 that is built for that hand tracking interface that gets you straight into a game within 30 seconds of entry. And my question to you is, why is Google forced to make you experience the game first by first downloading it to your system, this whole big package that you have to install to your system. And then you got to go hit open in the menu system to go into the world. Then you have to wait a good 45 seconds or 30 seconds for the menu to load. Why wouldn't the entire operating system just get you to that first interaction within 5 seconds?
Yeah, I mean,
and then once you're there and you enjoy your time, you go, okay, now I'm going to pay you a bit of money to go further into this world.
Sure. I mean, I think you're actually making Meta's pitch for Horizon Worlds. That is their pitch, that you don't have to wait for any app download. You just go straight in, and these are all parts of the operating system, Horizon Worlds. As we talked about with V81, that it is being built more into the OS. With Horizon Engine, they load in under 7 seconds. You do get to a different world. So that's kind of his Meta strategy. But I think you bring up a very interesting point about, say, Meta does ship a headset without controllers. The Horizon Plus subscription becomes a lot less appealing because the vast majority of the apps on this are for controllers. And it would make sense perhaps then to bundle this with controllers, of course. Do we want to move on to the EagleEye discussion here? I'm seeing people say that Joe Rogan's podcast has just dropped with Palmer Luckey and discussing EagleEye. So,
yep, that's where we're now competing with the Joe Rogan podcast here on the VR download for the very same discussion topics. I think you're going to find some very interesting stuff probably over there with the Joe Rogan podcast. I think David should probably bring us a breakdown here of the news, and then we'll get into the unhinged Ian discussion portion of this that I want to discuss as it compares to stormtroopers I find at the New York Comic Con.
Sure. So the background here is that for years, Microsoft had been working on a customized HoloLens version for this US Army program called IVAS. The goal being of IVAS to put a headset on every soldier eventually. Now, the Microsoft system was kind of a catastrophe. There were always these reports coming out on CNBC and other major news outlets from the field testing that was then given to Congress, showing that it was terrible. There were soldiers saying, get this thing off my head. And over the past year, what we've seen is Microsoft essentially slowly transition this off to Anduril. And the US Army has kind of evolved IVAS into this new program that's kind of a successor program called SBMC. So originally, this started so slowly. It was, like a trickle, and then a stream. Originally, it was just that Anduril was going to provide software for Microsoft. Then earlier this year, we found out that Microsoft's out. There's no HoloLens anymore. Anduril is going to build the hardware, and it's going to be called EagleEye, an integrated ballistic shell, not just a headset, but the entire helmet that soldiers would be wearing. Then, shortly after that, Anduril announced that they were partnering with Meta providing the core XR tech for many aspects of EagleEye. And there are other partners for Anduril as well, including Qualcomm for the chips, Oakley for rugged eyewear expertise, which is obviously kind of funny because Meta now owns 3% of Oakley's parent company, and then Gentex for ballistic protection expertise. So, flash forward to now, we had heard that EagleEye existed. We had talked on this show about the general concept of EagleEye, this integrated ballistic visor with modular display systems. So it's not just one kind of display system. It can be switched out for different mission applications. Now, the news this week is that Anduril has revealed the actual design of EagleEye and showed off concept clips of what its interface looks like to soldiers. So this is EagleEye with the transparent AR module on. You can see here that there's a sensor suite here as part of the helmet, as well as modular sensor attachments at the top that people have compared to kind of cat eyes. And you see in all of the comments of this, woo, obviously everywhere, for people pointing out the design here. There are obviously kind of points you can make about that, but this is the transparent AR system that uses waveguides to overlay an AR heads-up display to the soldier. Now, heads-up display we often use on this show to mean a fixed HUD, but I'm talking here about an augmented reality HUD that can be 3DOF position in your view or even have 6DOF elements. So this includes not just blue markers for your friendlies, but actually kind of bounding boxes that show you where you are. This includes being able to mark an objective using the rifle, which is smart connected to the headset, pointing your rifle and clicking a button to then create a green marker that everyone with their EagleEye on sees. This involves kind of being able to call in airstrikes by using an interface and then being able to see a picture-in-picture view of that autonomous weapon attacking the enemy asset. You have a mini map floating in your field of view that shows your compass direction as well as a top-down view of where enemies have been detected. And all of this is powered by Anduril's Lattice software. Anduril being the defense company that Palmer Luckey founded after being fired from Oculus, in case you're not aware of what Anduril is. Lattice is Anduril's core product. It's a software system that links all of the different sensor systems in the battle space together to autonomously build up a unified view of the battle space like you might have in a real-time strategy game, right? Automatically doing this based on all of these sensor systems and then marking the most salient targets and letting human operators direct all of the autonomous systems that are going to be on the battle space of the future and are already on the battle space of the present in places like Ukraine and direct them. There's no way that you're going to be able to, manually control every single system. This lets you in real world space say, go and give me an airstrike there, or I want to see behind that hill, and the system will figure out, okay, there's a drone here. I'll move that over there and give you this position. So this is the transparent AR module, as I keep saying. But Anduril also showed an image of and footage of what it will look like to see through it, the kind of pass-through mixed reality module. This is it here on Palmer Luckey in the Japanese military colors. So that's what this is showing in terms of the pattern. And you can see here that, again, it's the same basic modular design with this same helmet area that is designed to give you better ballistic protection than even a regular helmet. So this replaces the soldier's helmet, to be clear. They're not adding this on. This is one item that they put on with modular parts. But you see here, this is a fully enclosed pass-through VR system that is intended to be used for nighttime. So in general, the transparent AR system is for daytime, and then the pass-through VR system is for nighttime. And why is that, you may wonder? Because pass-through, as you may have used it, it's grainy and low resolution at nighttime. Why would anyone want that? Well, it replaces night vision goggles. So you're not actually just seeing an optical pass-through camera image. The sensors that are available on this system, and you can kind of see are capturing through these holes here, are thermal spectrum and regular kind of night vision technology. And the system can then bring in all of these advanced sensors that are much better than optical at night and give you a better view of the battle space and unify them, and then do the same thing I was talking about before. So detect where there are enemies, mark your friendlies, giving situational awareness. The core goal of SBMC, the US Army's program, is to radically enhance situational awareness. And anyone who's read books about war, from soldiers' reports to grander overarching narratives, will know that in the moment, one of the biggest challenges in any war environment is situational awareness. It's once bullets start flying, where are my friendlies? Where are the enemies? Where are we going? What's happened? It sounds obvious, but when you're in the moment, this can be one of the biggest struggles. And in many wars, it's also what causes things like friendly fire. So again, all of this is about situational. There's two main goals: situational awareness and the ability to command autonomous assets, so that the infantry and these autonomous drones that are going to be so much a part of the future of war are not these separate things. They're all part of the same system. Anduril's tagline for EagleEye is, I think, superpowers for superheroes. So the idea that they kind of become these technomancers, as Palmer Luckey describes. So you can go to uploadvr.com, and we have the clips in our article showing what it looks like through this pass-through interface at night that gives you a downright superior view, according to Anduril, than any traditional NVG system. So you're, to be clear, soldiers are already in nighttime putting on a headset of sorts. It's just a traditional night vision goggle system. This, according to Anduril, gives them a wider field of view than that, and a better multispectral image that gives them the greatest possible situational awareness at night, as well as, of course, this system for daytime that gives them the ability to kind of do all the things I just said. So Palmer Luckey told Defense News a few months ago that they expect the first scale deliveries to arrive in 2027. In the meantime, the US Army is doing field testing, but Anduril is really right now on the marketing blitz, I guess, here. They're showing off this as a system. They're trying to gear up interest but for allies as well. This is the Japan self-defense, the Japanese military colors here. This is not just for the US, it's also for NATO allies and other US allies. And you can kind of see that, this is going to be a big part of the future of war. The argument here is that there is this idea that the infantry are obsolete, and Anduril is saying no. If you give them spatial integration with the same lattice network that is driving all of these autonomous systems, they can be just as much a part of war, and the front line, who have actual direct view of what's going on, can direct these systems instead of having to do this old traditional idea of calling in an airstrike and directing these things so slowly.
All right, let me find my stormtrooper here. Throw him up here. Let's see if that. Yeah, this is a stormtrooper wearing a Quest 3 at the New York Comic Con. He's got a voice changer inside of his mask here that connects to a Bluetooth speaker box down at his hip. So when he speaks, I hear him speaking as the stormtrooper coming out of his hip, loudly, a little bit garbled because it's going through the voice changer, but it still has a really good effect of making it feel like you're interacting with a stormtrooper, an oppressive military force in a galaxy far, far away. Now can we go back to the cat ears? I wanted to talk about this being a helmet someone has made, and just as a fan wearing Quest 3 walking around unit. Now here's a real helmet that's on the way for military personnel. I've noticed the commenters keying in on Metal Gear Solid. Other one mentioned the cat ears almost immediately. I can't look at this and not see cat ears on the top of it. I saw someone in the comments mentioning that the cat ears should move, that there must be some use for having the cat ears move. And I think just the fact that it sparked the imagination in that way for one of our readers is why I wanted to focus on this section, right? You'll look at this and I wonder if people will be signing up for military service because they get to wear this kind of equipment. And it sounds so shallow at the same time that I think it's anything but. So I wanted to just throw that idea out into the ether of this community.
No, I could definitely see militaries using this as part of their marketing for frontline infantry, and there's obviously this kind of uncomfortable connection between video games and the military that has been a thing for decades now, right? There are, military recruiters have mentioned Call of Duty. There have been kind of, this intertwined connection between franchises like Call of Duty and the military for a while now. In the Ukraine war, you're seeing this melding of video games and real life war in a way that has never really been seen before. They have these drone squadrons being first person piloted by people who are very good at video games. They have these kind of like leaderboard like systems that are inspired by video games, and almost kill streak like perks that are given to people who get the most kills in these situations. So I think this trend you're pointing out of this kind of merging of video games and war is valid, right? Like if you watch these clips, again, go to uploadvr.com and go to our article. We have all 3 clips that Anduril put out available to view in our article. This looks like a video game, right? With the view that you're seeing, they are they are clearly inspired by video games. You pointed out Metal Gear Solid. Another one is, for example, Ghost Recon Advanced Warfare, Advanced Soldier from about 20 years ago, where a lot of this, you could almost be mistaken that these were clips from these kind of games that show this depiction. But that general link between science fiction, whether it be movies and TV shows or now games, and then what gets created is not new in itself, but we're now kind of seeing things from video games come into real life. There's one comment I want to point out here from Scratch Winter, who said, Technomancer's LMAO just uncritical simping for their propaganda. So I just want to be clear, we quoted Palmer Luckey. I said Palmer Luckey calls them. So when a journalist quotes someone, it doesn't mean that we're using their propaganda. We're telling you as the viewer what they said, and then you as the viewer can decide what you think of that after. But don't shoot the messenger, okay?
Yeah, God, what terrible choice of words. So the example, the reason I'm going to bring this home is somewhere between the stormtrooper out there wearing his Quest 3 to the New York Comic Con, and this military helmet right here with. They showed rear view cameras in the operating system, which is exactly what we on our show talked about weeks ago as a game changer if you had it today while wearing a bicycle helmet. So you could wear a bicycle helmet and have a rear view camera right built into your vision using a variety of head-mounted display architectures today. There's another example of, I need to bring this to Ready Player One and the people doing war at the end of Ready Player One. There's drones actually following real people ready to, destroy a vehicle while people are in VR in the back of the cab. And it's really ridiculous as people are running down the street, immersed in a completely, a virtual world that should be matching what they're actually doing in the street. I have to bring this back to mapping data and the quality of the mapping data in how close it is to physical reality. Today, we're on the cusp of having our first set of mixed reality games at home that allow us to go up and touch the wall and then touch another wall and have a button be touched that's virtual as we touch that wall and have the game hold up as we play that game for an hour or two. We're at the cusp of having tracking data that provides us that kind of an experience at home right now. There were amazing experiences a couple of years ago built called Space Pirate Arena, where you could get multiple people into an arena scale VR, and you had to sync up your location between two headsets very, very carefully. Here, to do the Ready Player One thing, where you're walking down the street, you need to map out the street in front of you and then virtualize it so that the 3D mesh data is one-to-one with where you're walking. And what you're not actually seeing is a pass-through reconstruction. Militaries have that kind of mapping data. Governments have that kind of accurate mapping data for real-world things. And I can have night vision in an Apple Vision Pro walking around my home because the Apple Vision Pro is mapping my surroundings for me. But I can't necessarily do that out in the real world yet because the Vision Pro's sensor suite is not military grade.
Yeah, and sort of Anduril's argument with EagleEye and Lattice is that it's not just your headset creating this environment mapping situation. It's every asset on the entire battle space. So it's every tank, every armored personnel carrier, every headset, every drone. All of these are being brought into this Lattice system, and you're getting the sum of everyone's perception and every asset's perception, not just your own. And that's kind of their view here. I think in general, the argument of these kind of new tech companies into the military defense space is that while in the late Cold War, the idea is that a very small number of exquisite assets were going to win wars, a small number of stealth bombers or stealth fighters. The idea here is that the future is going to be won by enormous swarms of drones. And on the hardware side, the limiting factor will be production, who can produce enough. But really, when it comes to the battle itself, the argument here being presented by these companies is that who will win will be determined by software. Whose software is better at controlling these massive swarms of autonomous assets? Or to be put more precisely, whose software better lets the people on the front line direct these autonomous assets, because they're the ones making the decision about what to do with them. But it's kind of this handoff of, you tell the system lattice what you want done, and it figures out how to best use the autonomous assets to do it. And it's, it's akin to what you had before. You had in the traditional war, you have a forward air controller who's radioing back to, an air control base that is directing an asset like a aircraft that's manned. But this is all happening at much faster pace for assets that are much closer and that are autonomous in larger numbers rather than these small number of exquisite systems. Yeah, and I see some people here kind of calling back on. I see multiple responses here. I see some people saying, this is cool, this looks like military, and some people rightly pointing out, real war is not a game. People die. People are horribly injured. And absolutely, we have to take this seriously. We're not suggesting that real war is a game. We're simply pointing out that these systems that are being designed to fight real wars are inspired by the kind of systems that were presented in video games, just like in many ways some of the late Cold War technology was inspired by the science fiction of the 1950s. There is this real pipeline, whether we like it or not, from science fiction to reality when it comes to these technologies. And Anduril is an example of a company that is very heavily integrated into that idea.
You mentioned there, David, the sum of everyone's perception. And I think that was very similar to the language used by the researcher that Michael Abrash introduced at the end of MetaConnect. He gave a very strangely worded speech about how the future of VR is sharing the sum perception of what everyone sees with everyone else. It was a very strangely worded. Go watch that. It was very interesting, but it was very much like echoing exactly what you said, making data use of everyone's perception out there. And I need to pay respect to the audience out there saying that sounds like dystopia, right? Like, we need to just recognize that these are dystopian, that this is dystopian language to certain people in our audience. And I don't mean to be like, I don't want to be alarmist about it. At the same time, I need to point out that, yes, they are saying that that's their intention for how to use what these glasses are that you wear on your face. They do intend to map out everything and everyone and everything about you, and to use that to influence your behavior.
Yeah. So in the consumer space, you have obviously usage of that for targeted advertising potential. Here, this is obviously in the context of a military battle space. How weapons are used, just like a stealth fighter or a tank, is obviously up to the whatever civilian political organization controls the military in each given country. In a democracy, that's in theory the democratically elected government of the time. And so, I think the argument against the idea that this is fundamentally dystopian in a military sense is that all weapons, you could make that argument for, right? And if one country stops developing these systems, the other country isn't going to stop, right? If in the late Cold War, the United States said, let's not build stealth fighters, it's not like eventually Russia and China wouldn't build the same thing. And that's kind of the argument presented here, that, assuming that at some point you get into a war, God forbid, do you want your side to have the best possible technology, or do you want the enemy to have the best possible technology? Because even if you decide not to build it, the enemy's not going to say, well, you know what, they didn't build it, so let's not bother. And we are actually looking into figure out what the Chinese equivalent is here. There are talks in China that China would like to build something like this, and they haven't really gotten to the same stage yet, but they are starting to talk to some of their local XR companies and figure out, how do we get this done? And they're looking at things like that, and we're going to track that as well. Like, what is the Chinese response to this?
I mean, that is reality. That is the world we live in. This is real technology that exists and is being made actively around us. It's actually interesting when we say that it's real technology that exists, right? The gap between concept and actually in use in the real world is sometimes shrouded in mystery, because We won't know what missions some of these things go on for years. But gosh, there's so many scenarios that I, not as a service member, can't speak to how this thing is actually going to function. That's why we're going to have to go and follow up and understand from service members what advantage or disadvantages is coming from these sorts of things. But I'm going to take a step back and just talk about weird ideas, right? Imagine crawling through a field, army crawling through a field by your elbows, right? And you're going forward by forward. But as you're crawling forward, you've got a camera out the back of your head or the top of your head actually showing you up above you everything that's above you, right? So you're crawling forward, but you have the eyes of a different animal on top of your head as you're doing it, right? And that's what we're talking about here with technology can enable. And I need to do this step back thing again. I've ridden e-bikes around New York and I've ridden regular bikes around New York. And it's an eye-opening thing to discover that regular bike riders actually kind of hate e-bike riders. And pedestrians kind of hate bike riders and hate e-bike riders just a little bit. And all of them hate car drivers. And it's funny that the car drivers, they have to give right of way to the pedestrians, but they hate all the other types of traffic doers as well, all the other ways people are getting through the traffic. But in particular, the bicyclist and the e-bike is the example I want to talk about here. You have a bicyclist who loves to go out bike riding, and they push their hardest. They're struggling to go uphill, one leg after another, pushing to keep pace going uphill. They've switched the gears on their bike so that they can handle this ride uphill better than they can on the other gear. And they get to the crest of the hill and they start rolling down and they get this incredible rush right as they're doing that, and of just all this hard work that they just put in to their physical body, to their movement through the world. And now they have an e-bike rider sailing past them twice as fast as they can go at the very time that it's the hardest for the person who's got the regular bike to ride uphill. The e-bike rider is having the time of their life, right? They have they're not extending their feet at all. They're having the perfect time. And again, I'm describing things like we were talking about heads-up displays and how amazing it would be to have like directions in your view or have arrows that point me to a cool thing in the city. And suddenly I'm doing that under leg power, right? Without expending anything to hurt the environment, using a better mode of transportation. It's actually fun because I can feel the wind on my arms as I do it. This is all to say, the e-bike rider and the bike rider actually hate each other quite a bit. And they're actually doing a disservice to one another when they both hate the cars and the congestion that the cars bring more than they hate each other. And what I've just described is the advance of technology, right? I've just described e-bikes supplanting bikes after 100 years of progress as providing a superior experience almost across the board, except for a certain subset of people, it takes away the joy of why they did it in the first place. And like they judge each other all day long. When at the end of the day, if you got the bike rider and the e-bike rider together and said, let's outlaw cars, you actually might be able to do it. Like you might be able to reduce the congestion of number of cars on the street if you could get the e-bike rider and the bike rider to align on viewpoints. I know how off topic this is, how different it is than the subject we were just discussing, but I'm seeing people in our audience discuss the cat ears and how it changes their view of war and how, that is going to appeal to a certain audience out there. But it's like the people in our audience are all embedded in political views that mattered last century, with technologies that mattered last century. You imagine war as a thing you do using a gun that you hold in your hands and kill a person that you see. That's not necessarily the war of the 21st century. The war of the 21st century is directing drones and trying to decide from a distance whether the drones you're sending are going to kill an innocent person or a guilty person. And that's, like, the people that are going to be fighting that war are thinking about their service now, right? Like, they're teenagers using VR headsets today who maybe when they're an adult are going to go sign up to do or work with these tools or battle in this type of way. And I had to explain the march of technology in this way, right? Like, if you've got a Tesla out there, have you ever been angry at the other Tesla drivers for parking their car at the Tesla station too long and leaving it there? And like, you couldn't charge up your car because there's no social training for us as people to get the hell out of the charging spot as soon as humanly possible to free it up for the next person. It's the same darn thing. We're changing as a people, changing as a culture, and here is technology changing around us. And gosh, just learn how you share things in common with the people across from you is my only advice. Like, we're journalists and we're trying to be as objective as we can when we talk about these technologies, but I have to comment on the social separation that's happening out there and point out that, like, look, a lot of your preconceptions about how this is going to work are wrong and you need to update them.
I think we're ready with that to move on to our Android XR section. We could talk about Anduril all day. There's a lot of detail in that, and we'll keep following that story. We'll obviously, after this show, go and watch that Joe Rogan interview and see if there are any interesting details there that we might report on. So I think let's move on to our third of 4 sections. So like I said at the start, we have our MetaQuest section. We just did our Anduril EagleEye section. We now have our Android XR and Apple Vision OS sections. So let's first just talk about the Samsung news. So Samsung is teasing a live stream for Tuesday. That seems to perhaps be for the headset launch. They have given it the tagline, come meet the first official device on Android XR. And this is going to happen on the date that multiple South Korean news outlets have reported that we might see the headset launch. So this is a very long in the making headset. It has now been almost 3 years since Samsung officially announced a headset and said that Google would provide the software via a new operating system and that Qualcomm would provide the chipset. Back in December, they officially announced Android XR and this headset, which they only refer to as Project Muhan. Google announced Android XR, the operating system. Ian tried it back in December, and you can go and read his hands-on on UploadVR.com. They confirmed that it would have, high-resolution displays, hand tracking, eye tracking, an external tethered battery. They didn't really say much else. They haven't really confirmed the name. They haven't said the price. They haven't said the release date. Things like that we are expecting to perhaps, based on Samsung's message, come meet the first official device on Android XR. Perhaps this is going to be Samsung actually announcing the product, or I should say launching the product. In terms of what to expect on the price level, in August, the South Korean news outlet Newswork reported that Samsung is targeting a price somewhere between 2.5 million and 4 million South Korean won, which comes out to somewhere between $1,750 and $2,800. So based on that rumor from that respected news outlet, we're expecting something that is significantly more expensive than a Quest 3, but less expensive perhaps than an Apple Vision Pro. Name-wise, last month, Samsung rolled out an update to its camera software for its flagship phone that included a new feature for capturing 3D video. And that feature has the description of capture 3D video for Galaxy XR headsets. So based on that one description, it seems possible that this would be branded under a Galaxy XR branding, assuming that that camera app description was not some sort of just generic placeholder. Obviously, last week we also saw a leak showing the Galaxy WebXR controllers, according to Android headlines. And that shows that there will be tracked controllers available for this device. Android headlines reported that they will be included, but we don't know whether that report is accurate or not. They also kind of had these images that showed the sensor suite. You have the standard kind of 4 tracking cameras on the front corners that you would get in a Quest 2 or PlayStation VR 2, as well as 2 pass-through cameras. According to this Android headlines leak, a depth sensor up here, 4 eye tracking cameras, 2 per eye, and then 2 lower tracking cameras that would presumably be used for detecting hand tracking gestures while your hands are at rest, and could also perhaps be for face tracking. We don't know. Design-wise, you see something that does resemble Apple Vision Pro from the front, but actually it's quite clear from all of the images that we've seen so far that that this is kind of like a halo strap design. You see here, it's very Quest Pro-like. You have this hard strap at the back, but it's not a battery strap. It's just a kind of counterbalance, it appears to be, according to Samsung. And then you have this halo strap here. So we are, again, expecting a launch next week on that date based on Samsung's tease. It's possible that it's not a launch. Maybe they just give more details. But at this point, it seems like it's been so long, and they have repeatedly confirmed to us that this is coming in 2025, right? That's on the record. It's coming in 2025. It seems like surely now is going to be the time.
I mean, the thing, so people are pointing out, yeah, I got carried away on the last one, and yeah, I did. And the thing about it is I get frustrated more and more as time goes on of people not able to see the larger trends at play here, right? We have this headset now that has been rumored. We tested it last year for an extraordinary long time, and it's fundamentally the same architecture as what Palmer Luckey shipped in 2012. I mean, like what he architected as the Kickstarter project, and then had all these other people glom onto and help him sell to Facebook basically within 2 years, right? Here we are more than a decade later, and we have the biggest companies on the planet all shipping the same fundamental architecture as a decade ago, except with brand new features and new price points. So I'm seeing Jorg out there saying, like, I think I would pay 2K for a headset like this after it has a big library, not before. And then CJ right above it saying it's more expensive than Quest 3, but with what benefits? You're both saying the same thing. There's, and then the other people mentioning Daydream, they're getting the reminder of Daydream being yanked out so quickly. No one wants to invest in that development time unless they're sure that Google is really going to see it through. So all these things are saying the same thing, right? Like, prove it to me, Google, prove it to me, Samsung.
Yeah, it's difficult to say too much before we actually get to try this, before we see what the final specs and pricing and availability are. You know, in terms of what we know so far, to the question, it's what does it give you over a Quest 3? It seems like from the rumors, we're going to be seeing perhaps 4K micro OLED displays. That's what the rumors suggest. We have confirmation of eye tracking, right? So that is definitely eye tracking. Ian used eye tracking, I believe, at some point during the demo, and Samsung has confirmed repeatedly that there's eye tracking. Slightly more powerful chipset, nothing dramatically more powerful. One thing I want to point out that's very interesting about this headset that we haven't really talked about yet this episode is this open periphery design. You can see it here on MKBHD, Marcus Brownlee, where by default, just like Quest Pro, you have this open sides and bottoms so you can see the physical world in your periphery. And that's obviously very advantageous for certain mixed reality use cases. But stuff like the virtual monitors we talked about earlier, where you're having these virtual monitors. Why would you want to see just complete darkness? Maybe in some situations you want to for focus. But we also, again, Samsung has confirmed that they will have clip-on attachments for the sides to block out the periphery for when you want to. And I'm cautiously optimistic for this. Some people really, really liked it for Quest Pro. Other people didn't like it. It seems to often depend on the shape of your head, whether you like this halo strap. And I want to just repeat that this is a halo strap. It doesn't look like it. It's designed to make it look like it's not a halo strap, but it is just a halo strap. That's what we're seeing here. And the other big thing that makes me very skeptical about this headset is that they kind of have a worst of both worlds when it comes to the battery choice. So you have this external battery, just like Vision Pro. There's no battery in the headset, but you also have this really rigid plastic rear strap, and it doesn't look to be detachable either. This is kind of ratchet mechanism is how you kind of tighten this, according to all the previews that we've seen so far, such as MKB HDs. But that means that you can't lean back on a plane seat or a bed or a sofa and completely relax and have your head kind of at rest and have these virtual screens. And like one thing I've noticed when I tried to use Quest 3 for cubism, I talked about on an airplane, I had my Elite strap attached and I wasn't able to lean all the way back into the aircraft seat. I had to kind of be slightly leaned in forward, always a little bit activated. And that wouldn't be comfortable for, these 10-hour transatlantic flights. So it's weird that, to me, what we've seen from Android XR so far suggests that the seated experience will be a big focus of this, right? It'll essentially be, from what we've seen so far, the pitch here seems to be it's an Apple Vision Pro for people in the Android ecosystem. That seems to basically be the pitch. We'll see if that pitch has changed on this potential launch event. But the big difference is this backstrap. It's so strange to me that they went for this approach that is more advantageous for when you're standing and walking around on a headset like Quest Pro, where everything's self-contained. This whole battery solution plus the backstrap, that's a really strange one. And just before we move on from this topic, I'll bring up our chart showing the chipset, the GPU performance. We've brought this up before, but I think it's really useful to contextualize. Quest 1, Quest 2, Quest 3, Samsung.
And then you've got the Apple Vision Pro, which is our next section of this podcast. And we should probably just start diving into it soon here. It's a big deal that the new strap is there, right?
Hold on. Are you talking about Vision Pro? We got another Android topic.
Oh, there's a second one. Yeah, sorry, I missed the second one. Yeah, what I wanted to say was, like, it is for that section, but the new strap, the dual knit strap that came out 2 years almost into owning the device. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, do we want to get into it in the Apple section, or do we want to?
I needed to talk about the strap difference being such a big deal, right? Like, we just spent that time looking at this hard strap with the cord looking like it's bending in the middle of the strap, as even in this one example photo. And I'm like 2 years almost into ownership of Vision Pro, and I do have like a cord bending spot in my cord on my battery. Somewhere in the middle here, there's a little kink in the battery that is clearly fraying a little bit. And I'm starting to get a little worried about it. But that's 2 years into extremely heavy use of the headset. And now I'm buying this new strap that we'll talk about in a minute to make the thing even more comfortable, basically, right? Like, to do this balance situation 2 years into device ownership, it's actually becoming more comfortable to wear on my head, theoretically. And it's just, I have to point out that comparison of where these companies are.
I think that's going to be a really interesting comparison for us to try once we are getting access to all this hardware. In theory, this counterbalance is going to be better for balancing the weight of the headset. In theory, this should be more comfortable. I keep saying in theory. I want to see what is more comfortable to my head and your head on the Samsung headset and on Apple Vision Pro's new dual knit band. Is one more comfortable? Apple's approach in theory gives you the best of both worlds here, right? The ability to lean back and counterbalance, as we'll talk about. But is the
best of both worlds thing? I need to. It's not just the best of both worlds. The soft strap allows me transitioning from those two worlds, right?
Sure.
If I have a soft strap, I can be in active use or sitting on the couch, walk to my bed, lay down, and have and never have it touched the thing on my head.
But is it enough to keep the headset comfortable, right? We'll talk about that when we get into it. So let's just quickly touch on our second Android XR topic here so we can move on to talk about Apple. So Lynx has teased their next headset. We just have this kind of very dark image showing what looks to be a very kind of similar design to the Samsung headset. Lynx is the French startup that had the kind of catastrophe of Lynx R1, where It was supposed to come out before Quest Pro. It would have been the first standalone consumer headset with color pass-through, but they had huge delays for years and years. They got beaten to market by Quest Pro, then Quest 3, then Apple Vision Pro. Well, it was originally envisioned as like this $500-ish direct competitor to Quest, right? It was going to be an open source European competitor to Quest. Over time, it went up and up and up in price until it was $1,300 or so. And remember this Lynx R1 that I'm talking about right now, it's using the Quest 2's chipset, right? And even just today, we're starting to see the. Can you unmute and mute yourself? I think you've somehow.
Yeah, I wasn't talking.
No, it's all good. No, it's just there was like a background noise. It's all good. It's sorted now. Yeah. So there was just a catastrophe from Lynx. They even just now they've only just kind of shipped to backers and offered other backers who don't want it anymore a refund. So with Lynx R2, that this is presumably going to be called, but who knows? They claim that they've learned all these lessons. They claim they know a lot more about supply chains now. They were mentioned by Google as an Android XR partner. So our presumption here is that this could be the second headset to run Android XR. So you could have Samsung's, and then Lynx could be coming along too. We don't know any details beyond that, though. It's just, here is a tease of a headset that could be the second Android XR headset. That's why we wanted to point this out. I'm sure I'll check the comments. I'm sure we have some very strong opinions here on Lynx. Maybe I don't see any right now, but certainly we do see in the comments of stories like this, there are people who were very frustrated by how that Kickstarter went. As we always say with every Kickstarter, don't consider it a pre-order. Consider it a gamble. A Kickstarter is not a pre-order. It's you telling this company, here's some money, I believe in you, give me the thing, hopefully. So I just always want to make that crystal clear. We put this in every article about Kickstarters. They do, however, say that they are not doing a Kickstarter with this new headset. That's all we know so far, is that this is a tease of it and that they're not doing a Kickstarter. It will be an actual, real pre-order. Okay, so I think we can move on to Vision Pro now. Let's quickly run through our 3 news topics on it, and then we can get straight into the new Vision Pro itself. So the big news that is kind of separate to Vision Pro itself, but is to the hardware, but is massive for the platform, is that Apple Vision Pro headsets are getting live Apple Immersive LA Lakers games early next year. So this is on screen right now an image of the regular model of the Blackmagic Apple Immersive camera, but they are making a dedicated special variant for live broadcasts, a variant that is designed not just for recording Apple Immersive video for editing, but for streaming it live to Apple Vision Pro owners. And Apple Immersive video, we are consistently telling you how impressive we find it, how it's amazing to see. High bit rate, 4K per eye, HDR, 90 frames per second, high quality spatial audio presented in immersive video. I constantly talk about how it turned me from an immersive video skeptic into someone who thinks this is a huge part of the future of XR, of VR, I guess, specifically, I should say, because your AR glasses are not going to be doing immersive video. It's a huge part of the future of VR, and it is going to be a landmark feature to have this live. This is a select number of LA Lakers NBA games, so it's a very early launch. But there is a future here where one day your favorite sport is broadcasting all of its games immersive. And you can, for the times that you can't be there at the stadium in person, when you would normally be watching it, maybe just alone on a TV, instead, you put on your headset of the future that's slim and light and high quality and lets you easily use your hands and eyes to just bring up in a couple of seconds the immersive game. It segments out your hands and arms and your popcorn and your drink so you can pick them up, and you'll be able to sit there as if you're courtside or game side or match side or whatever your sport calls it, and be there almost as if you're there. And I think, again, from seeing the pre-recorded stuff of sports, right? And from seeing the 2D 180 NBA games that are available today on Quest, because we have to keep saying Quest has this today for 52 NBA games per season in 2D 180. The idea of getting this in live 3D 180 is just, I think this is so, so important for the industry. This will sell headsets, not at first because it's only a limited trial. I'm going to keep repeating that. But there is a future here where people for sports fans and live events fans of all kinds are going to find this a pillar use case for VR. And there are going to be, once this becomes widespread, this is going to sell millions of headsets. I'm confident to say that we're talking a time scale of 3, 5, 10 years. This is going to be something that sells millions of headsets.
Yeah, and it's not quite an A/B test, but it's a massive test. And David and I have joked, like, him as a non-NBA watcher, or like as a non-American, trying to understand how many games are played each year when you play basketball or baseball or football it's absurd how many games are played by these teams when you add up each individual team and the amount of money that the people pay in the home region of that team for the broadcast rights to watch every single game of their particular team. It's an extraordinary expense. And so, like, what Apple needs to do here is prove that some subset of Lakers fans will pay $4,000 for the broadcast rights and for the headset in order to go to this selection of games. And the moment they have that test of their content and their market, they go and say, okay, that took 4 Blackmagic cameras installed in these positions in this one venue. What's the build out of 150 cameras or 200 cameras for every single one of the sports arenas for all of the NBA games? Okay, now what's the build out for another 150 cameras for football, for, every different sport there is? We're at the early stages of this, right? Meta is looking like it's going to test UFC fighting, and I can't wait till you can, sort of go to the beginning or the end of a match by doing the twist gesture, right? That'll be amazing. But this is extraordinary, right? I went to a live game in LA on filmed by NextVR, streamed to my headset on Gear VR glasses, right? So I'm wearing a Gear VR in the audience of the stands to compare what it looks like on a Gear VR to what it looks like in real life. And the gap was extraordinary between what they're doing, what they're capturing on the lenses, and what they're actually able to get to my eyeballs and headset. Well, Apple bought that company, and here we are all these years later with it actually bringing it courtside with extraordinary detail. Yeah, and crying baby needs a VR headset. I'm doing my best. Sorry, that is not my cat this week. That is my baby.
Yeah, look, folks, we have to, if you want this show to happen, there's going to be some times where personal things get in the way, and we try to make this happen. Ian's obviously with his baby, and I'm very sick at the moment, but we're bringing this show to you anyway, and we hope you appreciate that. That we're still making it happen. My throat feels like sandpaper right now for what it's worth, but I'm going to keep talking because I love doing this every week, and Ian's going to keep doing this even, with his sorting out other real life things that he has in his personal life. Yeah, on this, I think this is an example of something that existed in testing in the 2010s, but is now practical and good in the 2020s. And there's so many examples of that in this industry. I sometimes come across people who are very jaded from trying all these kind of ideas a decade ago. And they said, oh, we did this, we tried this, it didn't work. And I was there and I did it. And, I have so much respect for those people that were pioneers, but sometimes it's possible to be too early. The resolution wasn't good enough. The headsets weren't good enough. The all of the little technical details weren't there. And with Apple Immersive Videos, I keep saying, we're now at the point where the sum of all of these aspects, right? It has to all be right. It has to be high frame rate, or else everything just looks so stuttery and juddery, and that looks horrible in your full field of view. It has to have enough bit rate that everything isn't just blocky. It has to have the resolution that you can actually see the numbers on the jerseys in the field, and you can see the details of when people are playing. All of what it depends on each sport, what details you're seeing, but the little details in each sport. It has to have high dynamic range in certain ways for situations where these bright lights are just as visible as the dark areas of the scene. All of this comes together in these Apple Immersive Video presentations, and I just can't wait to see it live. And Yeah, it is weird that we, as Ian points out, the company that Apple acquired to make this happen, Next VR, trialed exactly this, NBA games live in immersive video on Samsung Gear VR, the little powered by Oculus thing that you shoved your Galaxy Note 4 phone into a decade ago. They tried it, but the technology wasn't there yet, and the headsets weren't there yet, and now they are, and now this is happening. So what is old is new again, in some ways, yes, but now it's actually good enough. And yeah, I see some people really agreeing with me here. Lil Scampy is saying that in their opinion, sports events and concerts will be bigger than gaming in VR. And I agree with that. Yeah, once we get to a future where headsets are a lot more comfortable to wear because they're lighter and slimmer, they have an open periphery design by default, like we just showed in the Samsung headset, and you're able to watch your favorite artist in a concert as if you're right there, and you can go and watch your favorite sport live, and all of this socially too, right? That's a huge component. Today, in this thing I have up here, this Xstadium app for Quest, we almost don't point it out enough. This is a social app. You can have your friend as a meta avatar beside you in Xstadium if you're in the US today. You can go and watch it's 2D. I keep pointing that out, caveat, it's 2D, but 180-degree video of an NBA game with your friend beside you as a meta avatar today on a Quest headset for free. Apple's immersive video does not support co-watching like that. I would love for that to happen in visionOS 27 or some future version of visionOS. That would be an amazing feature. It probably will, right? It's maybe a thing with rights holders, but if you're both entitled to the stream, we're not that far off a world where we're a couple of years off a world where you can sit beside a photorealistic representation of your friend who's on the other side of the planet and watch a sports game together. Or maybe even they're just 50 or 100 miles away, and you're both tired from work and you don't want to travel to be next to each other. The same way that today we talk to people on messengers and have video calls and hang out by playing disembodied video games. These are new, better ways to hang out remotely. And yeah, I agree with the commenters who are echoing that this is going to be a fundamental feature of VR and a huge seller for millions of headsets in the future. Okay, so yeah, I see some people really hyped about this. Mistoris Mars saying, I can't wait to try the Laker games. About time we start live immersive sports. Yep. I see Aliel saying that they recently checked out some of the immersive concerts in Quest 3 and they can see just how close it is. We need the lighter Meta headset and Apple Vision Pro level displays for the headset, but the infrastructure will take time for cameras. It's all coming together here. It really is. Like some of these concerts that you can get today on Quest 3 are great. The Metallica concert on Apple Vision Pro is breathtaking. It like if you have access to a Vision Pro, try the Metallica concert. We are so close to this world where immersive video is something that lets you travel to these events regardless of where you are on the planet. And yeah, Meta's partnership with James Cameron is going to be a huge aspect here. And Technoglitch is bringing up something in a negative way that I'm going to bring up in a positive way. Long distance relationships. This is going to make the ability to hang out with someone as an avatar and attend events like this is going to be amazing for long distance relationships. Today, you might sit there and FaceTime in a little kind of rectangle in your hand. A couple of years' time, you're in different countries or whatever, and you're going to your favorite artist concert together. There are massive implications here for remote communication. James O'Loughlin is echoing what I'm saying and saying that, yeah, the Metallica concert was one of the best VR experiences ever. And yes, I absolutely agree. Multiple commenters are saying that they think that Meta's next headset, the ultralight headset with a tethered puck and open periphery that we keep talking about and that we reported on, is going to be focused around this kind of use case. And I strongly agree with that. Let's move on to our next Apple topic. Then we have Ian back here. We're so close to getting onto that big Vision Pro discussion. We're going to talk about the Logitech Muse Stylus. It was announced back at WWDC, and it is supported in visionOS 26, which shipped last month. The news here is that you can now pre-order it, and it is shipping next week. It ships alongside the M5 Vision Pro, which we'll discuss very shortly. It is a spatial stylus with 6-DoF positional tracking, right? It's got IR LEDs under the skin and an IMU on it for, gyroscope and accelerometer. It has a pressure-sensitive tip for 2D creation, so you can do 2D creation on a physical surface with this pressure-sensitive tip. It also has a force-sensitive button here, so it knows how hard you're squeezing it for 3D creation. So in open air 3D space, you can adjust the strength of a brush by how hard you push this force button here. And yeah, you can see the other side just shows how you charge it via USB-C. So Apple and Logitech say that this will be supported in the Vision OS apps Crayon, Doppel, Sketch Pro, and Spatial Analog in the coming weeks. And this is priced at $130, which is actually, for what I expected, it's lower than what I expected from, like an Apple accessory. That's the same price, I think, as the MX Ink, which seems to use the same design. I talked about it at the very, very start of the show. Let me see if I can bring this up. So this Logitech Muse that they're calling it for Vision Pro is remarkably similar to the MX Ink that went on sale for Quest 3 headsets a year ago. One of the things that MX Ink is being used for in some developer experiments, by the way, a fun one I just want to mention is that this is on the Quest side, to be clear. They have it attached to accessories like a real golf club here to bring it in to VR. Keep trying to bring up this image of MX Ink. While I do that, if there's anything you want to add here on Muse, Ian?
Well, yeah, I just saw the one person asking about whether the MX Ink doesn't work, and they're complaining that it doesn't. Yeah, you would expect them to be slightly different in their approach, and just that incompatibility is a huge pain. When we start talking about the controllers here in a little bit, I'm really bothered by the PlayStation VR 2 controllers and how big those tracking rings are. I miss the fact that the latest handheld controllers drop those tracking rings and really let you do some fine-tuned manipulation of very small objects.
Yeah, well, so we'll get into that very shortly. I just wanted to show the image here of the MX Ink for Quest headsets that is really, it's the same design. The only difference is the buttons. So, like, you look on the Logitech Muse here, they have these two kind of very flush buttons. The only difference you actually see in the design is that the MX Ink has, I can't find an image of it annoyingly, but the MX Ink has these sort of larger 3 buttons that are kind of a bit more protruded and a bit less aesthetic, I guess. But yeah, these are separate products. They're not compatible. If you have a Vision Pro and a Quest 3, you're going to need to get each stylus for each headset. They are designed only to pair to the given headset. But it's great now, I guess, that both ecosystems, Horizon OS and Vision OS, now give you a spatial stylus. Remember, before this was announced, there were so many people speculating that Apple might come out with like an Apple Pencil Pro that would have this compatibility with Vision Pro, and obviously there was no first-party Apple system, but this is essentially that, right? This is giving the exact capabilities that people were wanting from a spatial Apple Pencil Pro. It just happens to have been made by Logitech instead. So yeah, we're going to be really interested to see how this works in the apps that support it. This is going to come down to developer implementation. I see some people hoping that like it comes to Blender. I see Andrew Tech saying that they really like the MX Ink accessory for Quest 3. Lil Scamby is asking, is there a reason why they can't work for both? Don't both do their own tracking? So like, yeah, both are the same thing, right? I mean, I imagine this is company politics. Apple wants to have theirs be a unique one. Like there's no reason that this shouldn't have been the same product. It is the same exact shape with different buttons. They're clearly using the same mold. I would strongly wager that the internals are the same in terms of the tracking and things like that. It just comes down to company politics, I think. So yeah, are you ready to talk about then the PlayStation VR 2 controllers? You wanted to bring that up?
People in the comments are just asking whether Apple will ever make their own controllers, which is the obvious question when we talk about all these things. And I think we're all waiting for that. Of course, they don't make input devices necessarily. They make computers, right? They mice and keyboards, but they're not the main thing, right? I don't know.
And keyboard, and they do make the Apple Pencil.
Yeah. I don't know. It's so tough. Like, where I'm going with that is the wristband feels like it could be a computing platform, just in the same way the Apple Watch is a computing platform. And I think Arlen is out there just holding the fort down and saying again and again, week after week, I would love both a wristband and controllers. And here we are with a whole assortment of the same things on every platform. A little tracked, pencil, a little tracked hand precision device, and then tracking our hands. And like none of it paints this overall picture of just every app in front of me is accessible in every. Like it would be so neat if I could bring a real pencil to any app, and then also bring this pencil too, with added haptic effects or something a little bit more. But I don't want to have one pencil for each headset. That's absurd.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's the same thing. It should be between these both headsets. And it's a good thing you bring up haptic feedback because to be clear, yes, both the Logitech Muse for Vision and the Logitech MX Ink for Quest both do have haptic feedback as well. I see discussion on like how the tracking works here. Yes, to be clear, for both versions, the Vision version and the Quest version, there are IR LEDs under the body here to track the same way that your Touch Plus controller or your PlayStation VR2 controller. It's the standard way to track VR accessories. There are infrared LEDs under the skin, the headsets, IR grayscale tracking cameras. Look at those LEDs. They also feed in the accelerometer and gyroscope data from the little IMU chip inside here, and that is all used. So they track the same way. It's just the tracking software itself runs on the headset itself. The controller is just providing, it blinks the lights in such that it matches with the camera exposure, things like that. But yes, let's talk about our next topic, which is the PlayStation VR2 controllers will be sold separately by Apple from next month. $250 gets you the left and right controller plus Sony's official charging dock that you can put the controllers into. It gives you this little attachment, and then you don't have to worry about putting separate USB cables. It's one USB-C cable into the dock. They're always going to be ready then for you, and it's a lot more aesthetic than having these controllers all over the place. The context here, if you weren't aware, is that in Vision OS 26, which shipped last month, Apple has added support for PlayStation VR2 controllers. So there are two different tracked accessories that Apple officially supports: the Logitech Muse and the Sony PlayStation VR2 controllers, and developers can use both of these in their apps. And we've already seen ALVR, the open source PC VR streaming system, add support for this. So if you have a Vision Pro, you spend the $250, you get the ALVR app from the App Store, and you can play Steam VR games on your Vision Pro. There are also a very select number of apps on the App Store that use them, and Ian was trying out one of them, this ping pong experience. Resolution Games has also announced a pickleball game called Pickle Pro for Vision Pro that they plan to ship at some point.
Yeah, I see the commenters out there saying that they can't go back to ringed controllers. I totally understand that. I do enjoy the protection. Like, it feels a little bit cool to know that you could punch something and maybe have the ring take it for you instead of your knuckles. But that's not a cool benefit compared to being able to stuff two controllers into a really tight pocket in a bag. And you can't really do that with the PlayStation VR2 controllers. I will say that many games, or just the architecture of the Vision OS system, period, makes it make a lot of sense for apps to only support one controller. So because of the architecture and the way Steam VR was born and the way Quest was born, it's always by default two controllers in a lot of games standing in for your hands. Well, on Vision OS, because the way it's architected, it's mostly just what you see right here. Hold your controller up and you've got a paddle, and then your other is your hand tracking, and hold the ball up in front of the paddle and you're good to go. It's a fascinating question, right? Gesturally or like haptically, a wristband, an Apple Watch over here on this wrist could probably do the best of all worlds of making me feel like I've got a ball in my hand. So the moment I release the ball, I get the slightest of little haptic gestures at my wrist to indicate that I've released it. And now my other hand is inside this controller to hit it with the paddle. I think I've got the dream right there of interaction.
Yeah, I strongly agree. It would make complete sense for Apple to give developers an API to make your Apple Watch vibrate if you're wearing it. It seems like a no-brainer at that point. Obviously, if you don't want that, there can be a permission or a setting to turn it off, but it should absolutely be there. You're right to say that they've got a device on your wrist. If you're in the Apple ecosystem, you very likely may have one. So it just makes complete sense at that point to have it. I just want to point out the price here. It's ridiculous, right? $250 for two of these controllers plus this charging dock, which is what, like $30 or $40. This should be $150 at most. Like this is way overpriced. The headset itself, the PlayStation VR 2 headset plus two controllers is $400. There isn't, like, this is more than half of that price. It's ridiculous. I imagine they are probably making these things for, like, they're definitely making them for less than $50, and I'm talking about a pair. So this is a ridiculous markup. This is a Apple has always been a bit ridiculous with their accessories. This is obviously, a Sony partnership, so Sony has to get some of the blame. But $250 for two controllers, that, at least with the index controllers, which were 280 or so, at least you could argue that because they were using the Lighthouse tracking system, there's a little bit more exquisite cost there. But come on, these are blinking IR LEDs, and like, what does a gamepad cost? $80. Even if you're talking about two of them, that's like $160.
I mean, no one's wrong here. Spatial, agreed. 250 is making niche more niche. Someone else saying FunFitLand is amazing on the Vision Pro. That one just came out. I liked CJ's comment. You can make an index ring finger with little joysticks on it and still have a neural wristband. I mean, you are describing like how amazing it would be to have the neural wristband from Meta combined with a little ring and a joystick on it. That, because the micro gestures do feel a little clunky to me. Like, they're a little bit slow. You're dealing with the friction of your own fingertips, and it's a little bit grating. Where a little joystick right there could, give you a lot more precision control without getting in the way of anything else. I love that idea, even though, I don't know, you'd have to do really a lot of work with computer vision to make that be more precise than a physical controller. I don't know if there's anything specific comments out there. The price is brutal.
I see some people are defending it crazily. Other people are agreeing that this is absurd.
Well,
I just put it in context. I just want to give one context. Like, on Amazon Prime Day, twice this year, Quest 3S has been $250 for a whole standalone headset and two controllers. Like, that is the absurdity. Obviously, yes, those are, Meta is selling at cost or subsidized, but I'm sorry, there is no world in which this is a justified price. I'm just so annoyed about it, because if developers want to be able to target Apple Vision Pro and use controllers, the problem that they're not in the box is already a huge problem there, right? If you want to build a Vision OS app, you have to then build for a subset of a subset. But if the ask was $50, I'm not saying that's a reasonable price. I'm just saying, in theory, sure, every Vision Pro owner would pick it up. It would be a no-brainer. Why wouldn't they, if they have any interest in gaming? $100, it gets to, okay, that's a little bit more. I'll think about it. $150, you're like, okay, I need to really be interested, but it's still within the realm. $250, then it's like you're only going to get the most enthusiastic kind of gamer audience here going for that.
Yes, but here's what's fascinating to me, or what I start thinking about with the future. It feels like we're starting to picture what an Apple Vision would look like. Between what we're seeing out of other headsets, between these accessories being added on as like not first party hardware, but first class citizens on the platform. These are tracked objects you have around you. Where I'm going with this is, there's crazy use cases like training for a tennis match. Saw someone out there in our audience mentioning Pickle Pro. They want that game, right? What is pickleball but tennis made more consumer friendly, right? Like it's a smaller game with more, you could play it in more places, right? Because of just how everything is organized. Well, here you've got tennis, this top tier sport that people spend a lot of money to train in, and you have to run from one end of the court to the other as fast as possible, and then catch a ball at the other end of the court that's traveling at 100 miles an hour in some cases, and get that back. And there's no system available today that I know of that can track all of your body movements through that training exercise at, one to one with an actual like usable data out the other end. You get completely different things. It's all working from the connect sort of, we can track this much information about you. Let's see if we can make Elmo interact with you across that screen. It's not the same thing as, let's actually get you better at football or soccer or whatever sport is your preference by having the headset track every movement you're making and then letting you, tweak it next time. Imagine yourself doing that whole, like, imagine a ghost run. You could see your last run right in front of you as you're going for the next ball, all right? You can see these ideas in games actually helping you in real world. Imagine going out on a baseball field and catching 100 balls, and then after you've caught 100 balls, you walk over to the side of the field and you see your route like a ghost as you ran for every single ball. You see in some kind of like color coordinated way when your reaction started to run for the ball and when you actually caught the ball. Like, you could make so much use of this data to become better, but it's only usable when the tracking gets really, 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 really good. So what I'm saying here is, you imagine 3 years into the future, a new Apple headset, Pro headset, with tracking cameras that go at absurd rates. Or you imagine tracked objects with LEDs on them that go at absurd rates and are tracked at absurd rates. And you can imagine selling for $200 or $250 that system, right? Imagine that price now being, oh, you get this object, and suddenly it tracks itself or something, like it's providing its own tracking information, as we've already seen tested. And you can use it in these scenarios that I'm describing, right? Attach it to a paddle or attach it to another object, and suddenly you've got a one-to-one training tool that you can feed into a model and become better at a sport. No, we're not going to go buy that as consumers, but suddenly you've unlocked in a whole nother like vertical of use amongst people. Another example of this is special effects, right? If you can get great body tracking out of two people on a stage and then not have to spend 4 days tweaking the body tracking data over on the PC, could you produce content for a Hollywood movie that way, in the same way?
Yeah, so I think that was Sony's big focus, or is, I should say, with their Macapi Pro system for their standalone headset. I would love to see Apple embrace that too, but right now we have two tracked objects, and it's the pencil and the controller. I think you're very optimistic about the pricing of what you described. If this is $250 for what is essentially a dual sense cut in half with some flashing IR LEDs, you're going to the device you described would be a lot more higher priced.
But I think what I'm arguing is that the price of good VR is worth it only when the tracking is good enough.
Sure. I mean,
and
yeah,
like it's great to point out this isn't worth it, right? Like there's so much value being left on the table by this weird. Like, it's just a weird situation that's making this cost more. But what I see here is a dev kit for something that does let more direct manipulation at smaller amounts and can be used in better scenarios. And I need to take a step back here and talk about the walkabout dream of what I know, but I'm in headset and the game is sitting there on my Vision Pro, let's imagine, right? What is my route to going and playing that game, to going and having a mini golf outing? And in the last 2 weeks, I started wearing my iPhones with a crossbody strap. I went and bought cheapos off of Amazon because I have the old generation iPhones, not the new one that has this integrated in with magnets. But that scenario, David, where I'm going to walkabout, I pinch on it, and while it's opening, I take the iPhone off of my side, which is already hanging there on a chest, and now I've got my putter in my hand, and I'm just hitting golf balls with my iPhone as a 6 DoF tracked object inside this game. I'm not saying any of these solutions are perfect or the right way, but like, I think I feel exhaustion that our audience feels to a certain extent of just, oh no, we went from controllers, which everyone agreed were like, these were cool input systems with 2 buttons on top and a grip on the side and a trigger. And, this was the standard, to now it's just been broken open and everything possible is here.
Well, what I will echo is that I would love to see Walkabout Mini Golf on Apple Vision Pro with these controllers, or one controller, I guess. That would be
Oh
great.
yeah, the one to that one commenter, right? The other controller, if you get confused between the two controllers, always leave the other controller charging, and then when you're done with your Walkabout Mini Golf session, the controller has died, you unplug that one, or you take that one over, you plug it into the thing, and you take your other controller. And yes, you're holding in the other hand, but then your other hand comes over and steadies it, and you're playing VR for endless amounts of time because you just hot swapped your hands.
Yeah, really interesting. We'll be interested to see what does this look like in 6 months and 12 months. How many developers do port over to Vision OS gaming wise? There is going to be, again, a vanishingly small market here, given that Vision Pro is already a small market. These are $250 controllers, is then a subset of a subset. But I think a lot of developers want to be there for the long-term future. A lot are obviously doing it out of just passion. There are many developers in this industry who, it's not about how many people are available. It's about wanting to put it on a headset that they love to use themselves. So let's have a look and see what does the game support for this look like. They haven't even shipped yet, right? That you can obviously go and buy a PlayStation VR 2 for $400, but in November this actually ships. Let's see. Let's talk about the big topic of today. Let's talk about the M5 Apple Vision Pro. So I saw a commenter to start asking, is this real? If you've been living under a virtual rock this week, you may not know, but it is absolutely real. After months of rumors, Apple has officially announced the new M5 Vision Pro, which fully replaces the M2 on the market. M2 is now discontinued. They do not sell M2 anymore. They have open pre-orders for M5, which ships on Wednesday. So the original Apple Vision Pro, now discontinued, was powered by the 5nm M2 chip from 2022, and the brand new M5 chip here is built on a 3nm process. Apple says that the improved CPU delivers faster loading times for apps and widgets and more responsive web browsing, while the GPU renders at 10% higher resolution by default, supports 120 Hz refresh rate for reduced motion blur. That compares to 90 most of the time for the regular Vision Pro, 100 occasionally for certain scenarios. And the new GPU also brings hardware accelerated ray tracing and mesh shading. So that ray tracing one in particular is going to be very interesting to see. The new 120 Hertz mode will be supported in Mac Virtual Display. Apple has confirmed. So even if you have a 60 Hertz MacBook or you have a desktop Mac on a 60 Hertz monitor, you pop into Mac Virtual Display, and now not only are you making your monitor bigger, you're actually doubling its refresh rate. You're getting a full 120 Hertz monitor virtually. So this is another example of, again, the benefits of virtualizing your monitor, and that applies even to the giant ultra-wide monitor. You can get a 120 Hertz ultra-wide monitor virtually. And meanwhile, the improved neural engine, Apple's name for its NPU, makes AI features like setting up your persona or generating spatial scenes 50% faster, Apple says, and AI tasks in third-party apps up to 2 times faster. Now, interestingly, if you look at some of these stats, right, 10% faster, 10% high resolution rendering and things like that, you may think like, surely the jump from M2 to M5 should be a lot bigger than that. But what we seem to see here is that Apple is actually tuned the M5 for a balance of efficiency and performance, not just maximum performance. A big question we often saw from people when this was a rumored product was, is anyone ever thinking my M2 is not enough? I want more power. And some people are, especially enterprise, and some people aren't. But Apple has taken a balanced approach. So it says that the new Vision Pro has 30 minutes longer battery life than the original. So that is 2.5 hours of general use or 3 hours of video playback. And those are both 30 minutes longer. So again, the battery is the same. It's the same battery. It's the same headset. The only thing they've changed here on the hardware side, other than the strap, which we'll talk about very shortly, is the M5 chip, and it's tuned for a balance of efficiency and performance. But let's talk about the dual knit band, the other thing that has changed. Thing one and thing two, M5 chip, dual knit band. The original Vision Pro's solo knit band was great, using this kind of 3D knitted mesh that is breathable and stretchable, but didn't provide top support. In the box, they obviously did provide the alternative dual loop band, but it was made of a less comfortable material. Let me just show you these bands now. This is the default old M2 Vision Pro's solo knit band. No top support, but really, really snug back support. The dual loop band in the box gives you top support, but then you have this kind of very traditional strap that feels a lot harsher on your head, doesn't give that comfy, snug fit. Well, you now get, we keep saying it in this show, but the best of both worlds. You get the dual knit band that gives you top support and rear support. And yeah, what's really fascinating about the dual knit band is that the embedded inserts here are tungsten instead of stainless steel. Stainless steel was used for the old solo knit band, and tungsten has a density more than double stainless steel. So this has resulted in something that you see on social media from people who are deeply misinformed about Apple Vision Pro and XR in general, going, "Oh my God, the new Vision Pro is even heavier. What have Apple done? They've made a heavier headset. What idiots."
Wow, I need to hear your American idiot voice more. That was wild.
So that's what I saw that so many times on social media over the past 24 hours. I rolled my eyes every time. And folks, the reason is this is still the same weight. It's the same weight. They've just swapped the chip. It's not different. What is different is the weight of this band. Because these tungsten inserts are twice as dense, the band itself is a lot heavier. Why would they do that? To provide a counterbalance. So you're getting more weight at the back, but the same weight at the front. So it should actually feel better from a weight distribution perspective. So this is a fascinating approach. We often talk about how a soft strap gives you the ability to lean back, but doesn't give you a counterbalance. Well, Apple has come up with a genius solution. What if we put tungsten in the damn thing and make the soft strap that to you feels soft? You're not feeling this tungsten. It's on the other side. It still feels soft and snug to you, but it actually provides some level of counterbalance. Fascinating approach. And another really fascinating part is that the little dial here, it's still a single dial on the side for adjusting, pops out to let you adjust the tightness of the top strap, or you push it back in to adjust the tightness of the rear strap. So I gotta say, I'm really, the M5 Vision Pro itself is what you'd expect, right? It's a spec bump, but the dual knit band is remarkable design and engineering, and I think I'm really curious to see what that feels like in person. Obviously, I'm talking about it from a theoretical perspective. I want to see what it feels like, but I think it's a really, really clever solution from Apple. And just to finish off the details here, it's the same pricing as before, the same storage. It directly replaces the M2 Vision Pro. You've got the same exact pricing as before.
Yeah, so a lot of wonderful comments out there. So I'll saying I find myself linking to UploadVR a lot in online discourse regarding VR, AR. We love to see that. That is why we do our work. We hope that we help you correct people who are wrong out there about the direction of technology. And that's my segue. Well, first I want to say VR Hermit's comment. The largest display I own is my two smallest ones. So that would be, I mean, my Vision Pro is my best display in my house. And it's going to be a question that we're going to put to a lot of manufacturers going forward. Everyone announcing a new VR headset. What use case do you see this display replacing? What are you saying to your customers right now they should buy this instead of? right? You ship everything else. What are you going to buy? I seriously doubt we will ever see another cinema display out of Apple. I think it surprised me, but I think it's 3D displays from here on out because you get the resolution now over the hump of 4K, and then all the content that you're making is 4K, and all the best content to consume is 4K. So like, VR Hermit's comment here, the largest display I own is my two smallest ones, meaning the two micro displays I would assume in the Vision Pro. I'm there too, and there are non-zero number of scenarios where it's advantageous to have a personal 4K display that has 3D locked in as well as the Apple Vision Pro does. Like, I felt a glimpse of this with the Index back in 2019. The people at Valve really took an effort to give you a bunch of dials on your head. Here's more dials on your head, right? But you have dials on your head to tune in the distance of the lenses to your eyes, another dial to adjust the IPD directly in between the eyes. And you could feel it. I wrote it in my original review. Sort of locking in would happen with your eyes visually as you just tuned in these two markers exactly right, and it's exactly right, and you go, "Oh, this feels great. I could spend hours here." That happens in Vision Pro, even though you're also struck by the weight of the headset every moment you're in it. Like you're feeling those two things hitting you. Oh, this visually feels a whole nother level compared to everything else I've done, but also my face is down. And so now we're talking to all these people out here in our audience who have only ever used Quest headsets for 10 years or Rift headsets or Vive. You've used every other system because you can't afford these displays yet. We get that. But you got to balance the idea that it's a good enough display to actually replace some of the other displays around your home. And when you make that shift, you actually start looking at all of your other purchases in a very, very different manner, right? Do I really need a new iPhone this year? I don't think I do. I think the last gen worked just fine. Do I need the 70-inch television on Thanksgiving this year? No, the 80-inch I get out of VR is actually better. All these big decisions don't, suddenly get upended and you didn't even realize it because your VR headset is the best display you own.
Yeah, so I see Andrew Tech asking us, do we think the M5 Vision Pro can be worn for 2 hours at a time? So two things I want to say about that. Firstly, this dual knit band is actually available for the original Vision Pro as an accessory as well. So if you are an M2 Vision Pro owner, you can get it for $99 as an accessory. I think you would be crazy not to if it works. But that brings me to the next part of the answer, which is we need to find out. This looks like, in theory, again, the design here, having the dual knit in both areas with top support, having tungsten inserts at the back to make it counterbalance, in theory, great. But again, we're not going to know until we put it on our heads. A couple of other things people are bringing up. One is the Wi-Fi situation. So yeah, as I keep saying, the only thing that is different on the hardware level is the chip and the strap. Everything else is the same. So that means it still only supports Wi-Fi 6, not 6E, not 7, 6. So you only get 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. You do not get 6 gigahertz. That's my biggest disappointment about this. We saw that in the FCC leak that there wouldn't be that there, but it's still massively disappointing. It means that, for those situations for Mac Virtual Display where you might be in a congested 5 gigahertz environment, you can't have a dedicated 6 gigahertz connection. For PC VR, with those controllers that we just talked about, you can't have your Wi-Fi 6E or 7 router and create a 6 gigahertz connection. Massively disappointing, but again, this is the product. It's just they've increased the chip and the new strap. I see a lot of people echoing the disappointment there. Another thing I see a lot of people bringing up is the trade-in situation. So there currently at this time is no trade-in for Apple Vision Pro headsets on apple.com or Apple Store announced. There is no trade-in from Apple. So you can sell your headset on eBay or Facebook Marketplace or whatever, but I think that's obviously a massive point of disappointment. We have called for Meta to do a trade-in program. They still have not done that. As far as we're aware, I don't think there's any company, a major company that does VR headset trade-ins. There are obviously some complexities around that. But that will be massively disappointing for M2 owners hoping to upgrade, right? You maybe will get a certain amount of money for selling it online, but you would much prefer to do that officially through Apple and avoid the hassle of selling things used.
I mean, I think that the M2 Vision Pro as a refurbed product is an easy way for them to make the Vision Pro cost $3,000 or 2.5 grand, whatever. You could suddenly in a couple months from now go and get an M2 Apple Vision Pro for that price, somewhere in that range. It would be a bummer if they only did it like 3,200 or something, only got a $300 discount or something. It would need to be a massive discount to really be worth it. But also that would be, imagine you get $1,000 back for your Vision Pro and then they turn around and sell the thing for 2,000. All I'm saying is that there's buffer in here for both you as the user of Apple products to get something back and go buy the new one, and there's something valuable for Apple to go around, turn around, and still sell this last gen product for people who want to get into this dev ecosystem but don't have the money up front to do it. That's an obvious solution that I think it's just too early for us to judge whether they're going to do it or not going to do it. I think we need to wait a little bit to see if they need to still roll that program out.
Yeah, for me, I would have thought they would have announced it alongside this thing. I find it hard to believe that they're going to just roll it out, next month or something like that. The reason I'm saying that is because then if you are an M2 owner who went out and bought an M5 or pre-ordered an M5 yesterday, that would kind of screw you over. I don't know. To me, it would have been something in the press release that would have said, "Oh, and trade in your M2." I would love to be wrong about that because that would make so many of our viewers and readers very happy that own M2 Vision Pro, but I can't see it happening. I just don't see it happening.
I mean, it breaks my heart, makes me feel poor, but right, the idea that they're not doing it this way forces me into a situation where it's like, oh, should I gift it to a family member so that we can do co-watching, right? Like you start wondering, oh, am I going to lose? They haven't even given us the amounts, but the amounts will come out and you'll have to do it, assuming they do a buyback program. You go out and look and go, oh crap, I'm only going to get a grand back for that. It's actually more useful to enjoy my time in an M5 and have my loved one in an M2 and we're watching movies together finally.
I mean, on one point, that's a good point. On the other, if you have the ability to gift someone something that costs like $2,000 to $3,000, I guess if it's like your spouse or something, that's different. But I think there's very few scenarios in which, I don't know. I don't think I've given anyone a $2,000 to $3,000 gift anytime.
And yet,
have you ever
there
gifted
are
someone?
people that are doing that as right, as their. That's just the way they are. That they've got that kind of access to money, and we're talking about such small amounts for VR, right? They're only going to ship a certain number of these units before they got to get to the next one, and this is all leading to me to David, right? I want a Vision without the eyesight display. I've actually turned the corner on thinking the eyesight display is a necessary part of spatial computing. Like, I think it would be useful for people to see my eyes when I'm using a VR headset, but not $1,000 or $2,000 worth of useful, right?
I don't think that's how much it costs, though. I think it's not that much, It's not zero, but it's probably a couple of $100 off the price in total when you factor in the markup. Yeah, it's interesting they kept it, but I guess the reason that they kept it is, again, this is the same Vision Pro. This is not a new design. It's just the chip has been changed here, to be honest. One thing I want to bring up, a lot of commenters are pointing out, I said that it's the same price as the M2, and that's true in the US, but it is not true for certain countries like Europe and the United Kingdom, where it is actually now slightly lower. I think that's mostly just due to where exchange rates were when Vision Pro 1 launched versus this upgrade. But it's nice for if you are, in the United Kingdom, for example, it's £3,200 now. and you get a similar kind of discount there in Europe. So this is actually, you are getting a price drop outside the United States, but again, probably mostly down to where exchange rates are now versus then.
It's interesting to see people rip me apart, you and James both, for sort of throwing out $1,000 as the cost of the eyesight. What I'm rolling into that is the Apple tax as well as the product differentiation tax. Like, we need this thing to be its own product category. Therefore, we need to build a buffer for these other things around it so that it's a clear choice for the user what I'm buying, right? Imagine the M2 Vision Pro is, let's say it's $3,000. The M5 Vision Pro is $3.5 grand. You can go get the refurbed M2 tomorrow, and then they slide in with a $2,000 product that abandons the eyesight display and still works with PSVR 2 controllers and the Muse, and it still has a battery pack to your pocket, maybe even uses the same battery pack, right? So that they can get economics of scale. But they price this thing at $2,000. And then the refurb versions of it get down to $1,500. And all this is, people carry a lot of value around in their pockets with Apple products and in their bags with Apple products. It's like stored value that you can redeem when you want to upgrade to the next cycle. And so the idea that Apple wouldn't embrace that idea here is not, like, I don't think it holds water. I think this is how you build out the entire product line from $3,500 down to $1,000 by slowly adding refurb things that are a little lower, and then you have another product line that goes lower than that, and so forth.
Yeah, I think it's great that refurbs exist. For example, you can get a Quest 3 or 3S for slightly lower cost, but I do think people have more hesitancy towards refurbs for something that you wear on your face versus something that, like an iPhone or, you know, an iPad or something. So I see there probably is a bit more resistance to that. But
have you ever sold a Meta headset, an Facebook headset?
Sorry?
Have you ever sold a Facebook or Meta headset, a used one? Like, I'm not going to use this anymore. It's time to take $100 of value out of this.
No, I just give them away. I don't, because at that point, that is a giftable thing for me at that point.
There it is. That's where I'm going with this, right? Like,
if it costs, I'm not giving away a Vision Pro. You know, if I wouldn't give away a Vision Pro, but I would give
or
away.
You need to really love that person, right? You're going to use this, right? How many hours are you going to use this?
Yeah, you know, obviously something like a Spice is different than, you know, a friend. But
my point on there is, like, what you just described, David, is there's no value in the Quest hardware after you're done with it. Like, the value is so low that it's just a giveaway thing. And that's how Meta chooses it. They give them away like candy to creators, journalists, people that are way out of their area of interest. They're just toss these headsets out. Pimax does the same darn thing, right? Toss it out, create a little bit of hype. That's not the same thing that I'm describing of storing value in an ecosystem that then I extract from money 3 or 4 years from now to, like, climb my way up as a computer user so that the things I actually make with these computers make me money down the line.
Yeah, I love, you know, the M5 Vision Pro has only just opened pre-orders and we're already talking about what does the next headset look like. We don't know, I guess. There are obviously those reports from Bloomberg and Quo, and, you know, suggesting that maybe, well, from Bloomberg's Mark Gurman specifically, suggesting that the Apple Vision Air that might have taken out the front display in 2027 may be delayed or paused or cancelled. It's hard to see through the fog of war there of information and know what's going on. I think I'm going to wait to see for what reports next year pop up about that until I kind of have a good idea. I'm sure they're definitely now thinking at Apple about where do we go next, but it's probably too early for anything to be really kind of.
I'm going to argue.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to argue for the 3-tier thing of 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, right? Apple Vision Pro at 3,000 above, Apple Vision at 2,000, and then what I want is an Apple Vision Air that is literally just a pair of frames with no display on it, audio, and the same eye tracking and face tracking as the other systems, but nothing else. That's what I want is the Vision Air.
It's not, but that doesn't run Vision OS, right? That's not Vision. To me, a Vision headset runs Vision OS, and so to me, an Apple Vision Air is take this, get rid of the front display, put an A series chip in and maybe use use maybe 3K micro OLEDs instead of 4K or something like that. Maybe, you'd bring your own audio instead of audio pods or lower quality audio, things like that. You can see how you get down in price. I can see how they get down to 2,000 in that area. The 1,000 I think is a lot further off. And again, to me,
So
it's not a Vision headset if it doesn't run Vision OS. If I build an app for Vision OS, it needs to run on the Vision headset.
I think that's fascinating. You're right, and it's so fascinating what you're saying, because if the thing just had Siri, I think you're describing Android Micro or whatever the other brand of Android was going to be. The splitting that happened over on Google,
Yeah.
the confusion of all that. If you give me an operating system that is just Siri, that's Vision OS Lite to me. And to your point about it not running Vision OS, that would be pretty crummy if I put on my Vision Pro and all I had was Siri to do everything around me. Like, that wouldn't be great. All the magic is all my manipulation of these objects in the world around me.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's quite clear from the rumor mill that Apple is working on glasses, right? Apple glasses. What I contend is that they will not be called Vision and they won't run Vision OS. I think, again, I'm just going to throw out a speculative name here. I think they'll be called Apple glasses and they'll run Glasses OS. I think they'll be as different as AirPods to iPhone. They're or maybe a bit more similar, I guess. Yeah, these are going to be like AirPods that you wear with a camera. That's essentially what it's going to be. It's going to be Ray-Ban Meta, but with Apple and Siri. And that seems like a great product. I just think it's a completely different thing than a Vision headset. A Vision headset, as I keep saying, runs Vision OS. It lets you bring up a movie and a volume and a Mac Virtual Display. And I just don't think those things are going to be there in your Siri glasses, and so they're not kind of the same thing there.
Yeah,
but
so
it'll be interesting to see.
agreeing with you. It's a great point. I want, someone is mentioning a Max version. I want the Apple Vision Pro Max with varifocal at $5,000 or $7,000. I think there's room for that in the market at crazy ideas that they could do. Someone asking out there about leaked parts from a supposed new thing. We are very careful about how we report about rumors and unconfirmed sources. We wait until we have enough sourcing or confirmation of something being probably happening before we put it in front of our audience. At a very high level, the M2 Apple Vision Pro that shipped almost 2 years ago now should have shipped 2 years before that, but they couldn't. They could not build the thing the way they wanted on the time scale that they wanted to deliver it. And that's how we arrived at this sort of launch being this sort of way. They made very shrewd choices of, okay, we're going to hit it this year. And honestly, like, there's stories to be told by the people who were in the room making those decisions that will be, sell millions of books a couple of years from now. But there was a moment there where Apple was like, the Apple executives went and walked through the company and looked at all their projects, and they went and looked at a self-driving car or a car. We don't know that it's self-driving. We can only assume it.
Yeah.
But they went and looked at a car made by Apple's engineers. This is a company that had a blank check to develop whatever the heck they wanted. And they threw a bunch of engineers at a car technology, and they assessed it from every darn angle they could have and said, I don't think we can do it. I don't think there's a route into this market. I'm speculating here, but you can easily imagine them go, Waymo is 5 years ahead on self-driving. Tesla is 10 years ahead on hardware. And you guys have got also ran versions of each of those technologies in this car you've just brought us. We're not doing it. And a whole bunch of engineers got reassigned. We saw that reporting out there that they got put to other projects. Apple didn't do that with the VR headset. They shipped the VR headset. So there was enough in between all the timing here, right? And if I was on the Apple Vision product, right, and I had just spent 10 years developing it or whatever, and I came to Tim Cook and said, here's what we're able to ship next year. Here is the demo. Enjoy your time in this for 45 minutes and, interact with a dinosaur and do all these things. I would have had the strength as a product manager to come to Tim Cook and say, if you don't ship this headset this year, you should probably cancel the entire product line, the entire effort, because it will then become what your car project just became. We are too far behind the competition in order to catch up. And who is the competition here? The competition is Meta, who is shipping as fast as they can humanly ship each new product. And they're leaving us all in the dust. They leave us with devices that are outdated and problematic, but they are, here we are with hand tracking on a cell phone chip, right? Like they're doing magic to make VR happen. But all of this, like you're asking about a product that's 2 years in the future, leaked in an image, and y'all can't afford the current project. You can't afford the current headset, so you're thinking about the next one. I understand that. I empathize with it. But you've got to take a step back from that hype of thinking about the future. Look at what we have today. Look at how it fits into the ecosystem of other products that are available to you, and understand that they're all going in the same direction, right? And if you're trying to make a purchase choice for yourself of, am I buying now or a year from now, that's a very personal, difficult choice for you to make as a person. We can't step into your brain and decide that, like, if you're going to spend $2,000 now on an Apple Vision headset or $3,000 on an Apple Vision headset, are you denying yourself something next year that would have been more critical to your future? I don't know. You can go develop in you can develop in a Quest headset for $300 using, what's the name of the program? I can't think of the engine, but there's an open source engine for you to learn how to code. You can go do all of that right now for a very small amount of money. But, you know, I'm slowly becoming a developer with vibe coding simply because I'm already in a headset and it's effortless to bring up my Mac, to bring up to hit the play button on the Mac and have a volume appear right over there that that is the 3D representation of the code I just built over here with an AI helping me code it. And so, like, I'm sitting here watching my favorite movie in the world on an 80-inch screen, and I'm sitting here going, huh, I wonder if I can make this. And like Hacker Man, I suddenly become Hacker Man over on my PC. And then over here floating is the thing that I just Hacker Maned over on my PC while I'm watching a movie, right? Like, I can only do that thing I just described on a Vision Pro right now today as simply as I possibly can. I can't. I David, how many hours have you lost because of the friction between taking your headset off and on again? Like, it's probably weeks of your life that you've lost if you add it all up.
Yeah, as we keep meaning to point out, the Vision OS software experience, from the way you use it as a consumer all the way through to the developer experience, it is years ahead of everything else. We haven't seen an equivalent from the Android world, be it Horizon OS or Android XR, to so many of the fundamental aspects of Vision OS. And as I keep saying, and Ian is kind of pointing out as well, that when it comes to when a future Vision headset might be affordable or viable for you, what the reason that this news should still matter to you is that Vision OS is the product that keeps evolving, and the Vision headset that you do buy, if you're in the Apple ecosystem, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, whenever one comes out that's appealing to you, will be still running that Vision OS. So just before we finish up, I just want to bring up one comment from Biggs, who makes a really interesting point, that this dual knit band on the M5 Vision Pro it looks worse in images, in marketing shots. It's less aesthetic than the solo knit band. And I think that's a fascinating observation because it's absolutely correct. So when it comes to the original Vision Pro, Apple obviously includes the solo knit band in the pre-attached in the box, as well as the dual loop band. But every marketing shot you'll ever see, every like render of Apple Vision Pro M2 was using this solo knit band, and yet within a couple of months of launching the product in every Apple store, when you went in for a demo for the M2 Vision Pro, they would put this on your head. That was an admission by Apple that this was the aesthetic one, and this is the one for actual comfort. And so I think it's fascinating that Apple has decided with the M5, this isn't the optional one in the box. They don't have the solo knit band in there. It's gone. You can buy it if you want. If you really do want the aesthetic look, you can buy it $99 on top of your M5 Vision Pro and get the old solo knit band. But that's not the one in the box. This is, because they have actually decided, and this is fascinating from Apple, that the comfort of the product matters more than the cool, sleek marketing. And this is something that has been a trend I've noticed over 10 years of being in this industry. There are so many situations in which a company prioritizes the aesthetics over the practicality, the ergonomics, cases the functionality. And remember with Immersed, for example, they had this kind of by default glasses arms look. But then the actual strap that they recommended people use, which they, let's not talk about Immerse beyond just this mention, but the actual one they recommended people use was a traditional kind of VR style strap. So yet to me, I think it's a really good thing to bring up. Big's very, very fascinating that they have chosen comfort over marketing aesthetics. So kudos to Apple for that. Kudos to Apple.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and it's interesting to hear. I love David for pointing out this very nuanced history of Apple's choices here. I'll go out on a limb and just say that this is showing innovation in the only way they can on this current timescale. You have a product here that they can't change anything about the thing on your face at these scales, except to put a different chip inside. Let's actually change the whole game on the other side and actually fix what we did wrong on the first one. That single knit band went into a bag and I never wore it again. I used the double-sided one for everything. And the thing I've loved about it, I'm really curious to see if I can do this with this band. But the system, I've seen actually in our audience people interested in my use of this and how I did it. But getting on a plane, I want the headset to be hanging on my neck. I want to interact with everyone face to face, actual eyes to eyes with everyone as I'm getting on the plane. But I want the headset sitting on my neck with it hanging off of the back strap, off of the back of my head. And ideally, I want the lenses covered by some other material, while I'm doing this. I don't know if it's probably not going to work this way, but if that middle band also covered the strap, or even this softly covered the strap in various scenarios, it would be really useful for walking around with a headset and not having the lenses exposed. But I sit down in my chair and then just adjust the dials a little bit or pull it up to my face. And ideally that's my whole transition from getting on a plane to being in my movie with my little scenario hacker man windows all around me the moment I'm sitting down on the airplane. I don't have to wait for anything.
I think you kind of have the opposite idea of people that want flip up, and there are some flip up kind of visors for all of these headsets. Flip up third party straps, they flip up, you want to flip down essentially. I think I definitely have to go now. I have kind of a hard cutoff now. I think this has been a really great discussion.
Yep, I got to get going too. I do want to say this is the first time that I've put a baby to sleep while on a live broadcast, while in virtual reality. During the first half of this broadcast, I had 2 cameras into reality on my baby as he was rooting around on the floor right in front of me. I watched him the entire time. Very stressful to make sure that the software works as reliably as I need it to in that scenario while on a live podcast with you. I apologize to you all for hearing the baby cry as I was putting him to sleep. I fed him twice during this show and put him to sleep, and only had to pop out of this broadcast with you for a few minutes. But that worked. So it actually worked despite it not being ideal. And I have many thoughts for you about the design of this studio in Apple Vision Pro so that I could keep an eye on the baby a little bit more directly instead of having to have 2 cameras into reality through the entire show. But that's my long-winded way of saying that was my experience. David is getting a little sick over there while we're doing this broadcast, and
my throat is sandpaper.
so David, please get better. Please rest. We've got a big couple of weeks ahead of us, a big couple of months ahead of us as we head into the biggest period of VR since 2019, I think, would be the
Maybe
2016. I mean, it's so big where we're moving into.
Yeah.
So, and now you can send those links to uploadvr.com back at those people out there that are asking about VR and saying they're interested in AI smart glasses, they're interested in AR, and you're going to have to explain to them, well, you can actually pass AR through VR, and you should pay attention to these headsets that are coming. So we'll see you. David, get better. Thank you to our audience.
Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us. We will see you next week, and we'll see you in the future.